Welcome to Stories for Sleep. Welcome to Stories for Sleep, a place where scientific stories, ancient memories, and the deeper layers of the mind are told in a slow rhythm, gentle enough for you to listen, and soft enough for you to fall asleep. When night arrives, the body needs rest, but the mind sometimes still clings to the thoughts of a long day. In those moments, forcing ourselves to stop thinking rarely works. Instead, we can allow the mind to drift into a story larger than ourselves. And tonight, that story is the Earth, a planet that never stands still, always breathing, always moving through rock, water, air, and deep time. On the Stories for Sleep channel, we share the most fascinating truths of Earth science. Not so that you remember them, but so that you can feel them. Mountains built by patience, oceans carrying the memory of movement, and a planet that continues its work even as we close our eyes. If you enjoy gentle journeys before sleep, you are warmly invited to subscribe to Stories for Sleep so you won't miss the stories that help the mind settle each night. And now let your body soften, slow your breath, and let us begin. The Earth never stands still. When night falls and human life begins to slow, the Earth continues to move in its own quiet way, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily and deeply. If we listen long enough, softly enough, we may begin to sense that the planet beneath our feet is not a motionless stone drifting through space, but a living system, always breathing, always changing, always continuing its story. Seen this way, the Earth resembles a vast body rock, as bone, water as blood, air as breath, and time as a slow heartbeat that never stops. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, the outer world mirrors the movements within the human psyche. When we see the Earth as an unfolding process rather than a static background, we also learn to see ourselves as a flow, not as a fixed self. Mountains are not born in a moment. They rise through millions of years of collision and uplift, much like human character formed by countless small experiences layered in the unconscious. The ocean is not merely a calm surface. It carries the memory of ancient storms and silent currents, just as the deeper layers of the soul remember more than consciousness can name. Every landscape on Earth is a memory frozen into physical form. A desert was once a seabed. A quiet valley may once have been torn open by glaciers. Layers of rock stacked like wordless diaries recording volcanoes, meteor impacts, and tectonic shifts. When we stand before a cliff or watch a river flow at night, we are facing deep time, a kind of time that does not hurry, does not obey clocks, but moves like the planet's long, dreaming breath. Tonight's invitation is simple: let your body loosen. You do not need to understand the science behind these movements. You do not need to remember names or numbers. Just allow yourself to feel that the Earth is still working, still moving, so that you do not have to. As your shoulders soften and your breath slows, your awareness begins to align with a process far larger than yourself, one the planet has carried out for billions of years. In sleep, your consciousness rests like quiet ground beneath the night sky. Yet beneath that stillness, both you and the Earth remain in motion. Silent currents continue healing, reshaping, preparing for tomorrow. And simply knowing this may be enough to let you gently close your eyes, trusting the planet to keep the rhythm for you. Movement as permission. When we allow ourselves to see the Earth as a living presence, something subtle shifts within the mind. The pressure to remain stable, to stay the same, to not change begins to dissolve. For if even the planet itself does not stand still, if rock can flow and continents can drift, then the fluctuations of human emotion and thought become easier to forgive. At night, the Earth does not judge its fractures. Volcanoes erupt without being labeled mistakes. Earthquakes are not failures. They are simply the ways deep energy finds its release. At the unconscious level, human beings function in much the same way. Unspoken worries, unnamed emotions, buried memories, all resemble pressure building beneath the psychological crust. When we force ourselves to be fine, normal, or strong, we unknowingly seal natural openings. Yet the Earth teaches an ancient lesson. Every living system needs movement to survive. Rivers do not remain loyal to a single channel, and the mind does not need to remain loyal to a single state. Imagine yourself lying down, your back touching the ground. Beneath you are not just floorboards or a bed, but tens of kilometers of rock shifting by millimeters each year. Movement too slow to feel, yet powerful enough to raise entire mountain ranges. In the same way, the most important changes in the mind occur during sleep: slow, deep quiet. No effort required. No control needed, only permission. Earth science calls this deep time, a reminder that some processes cannot be rushed. Jung believed the maturation of the soul unfolds in a similar deep time of the unconscious, beyond the reach of will or logic. Sleep is the doorway into that realm where everything is handled at the pace life requires, not at the pace schedules demand. As you listen to these stories of the Earth, something gentle but important happens. Attention moves away from the personal self. Thoughts about tomorrow, responsibilities, and worries shrink like a mountain seen from space. The nervous system begins to lower its guard. The body understands that it no longer needs to brace itself. It is being supported by something older, larger, and steadier. If your eyelids grow heavy, your breath slows, and thoughts begin to drift, this is not distraction. It is alignment. The Earth continues to turn, to drift, to breathe, so that you can rest. And while you sleep, the planet will quietly continue its work, just as your unconscious continues to care for what consciousness no longer needs to manage. You do not need to hold the Earth still, and you do not need to hold yourself still. Part 2. The vast energy of the ocean. Beneath the calm. The surface of the ocean, where moonlight only touches the outermost waves, exists a world of deep and slow movement, carrying immense energies unseen by the naked eye. The sea in its silence is never still. It resembles the collective unconscious of the planet, where every disturbance, gentle or violent, is remembered, transmitted, and transformed. A tsunami is not a sudden wall of water, as dramatic images suggest, but the patient movement of energy through the entire body of the ocean. When an earthquake ruptures the sea floor, or an underwater volcano collapses, the surface above may appear unchanged at first. No roar, no towering waves, yet deep below rock has shifted, mass has moved, and released energy begins its long journey like a quiet heartbeat. A tsunami can travel thousands of kilometers with a height of only a few centimeters in open water, unnoticed by ships, yet carrying the weight of geological upheaval. Here, the Earth offers a profound lesson about the human mind. Jung taught that the unconscious does not react like consciousness. It does not announce itself loudly or immediately. Psychological shocks, loss, fear, trauma are often like earthquakes beneath the ocean of the psyche. Life on the surface may appear normal, but deep within energy has begun to move. And like a tsunami, unacknowledged emotion may travel far and long before finding its shore. The ocean has memory, not memory of stories or images, but memory of movement. It remembers wind depth, seabed shape, and past disturbances. This memory determines how energy amplifies or disperses as it nears land. A distant, quiet shoreline may suddenly bear the force of an event thousands of kilometers away. So too in inner life, cause and effect are rarely close together. An old experience, long forgotten, may resurface unexpectedly. But the ocean is not malicious. It does not attack the shore. It simply completes a cycle of energy transmission. Just as the body releases tension, or the psyche releases what it cannot hold forever. Seen this way, even the most powerful natural events are neutral. Neither good nor bad, only balance restoring itself. As you listen tonight, you may feel a subtle reassurance. Powerful emotions do not need to be suppressed nor expressed immediately. They can be allowed to move at their own pace, like a tsunami in the deep ocean. As your breath slows and your body softens, your nervous system understands it no longer needs to stand guard. The sea is doing its work. The Earth is carrying energy in its own way. You only need to lie still and let the ocean within you continue its journey far deep and gentle. If you listen closely, you may sense that the ocean moves not only across space but through time. A wave born today carries the memory of millions of years of tectonic motion. Ocean depth, continental shelves, and subduction trenches like wrinkles on the Earth's face all shape the flow of energy. Nothing moves alone. Nothing happens in isolation. In Jungian psychology, the human psyche functions in the same layered way. Strong emotional reactions often arise from deep psychological strata, childhood memory, ancestral experience, collective patterns stored in the unconscious. When an event strikes the right fault line, emotion surges not because the present is too large, but because the past has accumulated. The tsunami teaches that power lies not in noise, but in endurance. Nature shows us that energy needs movement, not confinement. When blocked, it finds another path. When allowed, it disperses and returns to stillness. After the wave completes its journey, the ocean resumes its familiar rhythm, without resentment, without judgment. It does not remember pain the way humans do. It keeps only structure so the next movement can occur more completely. This is nature's quiet wisdom, a wisdom without blame. As you lie in the darkness, your body may carry unnamed currents, tension in the shoulders, tightness in the back, shallow breath from a long day. You do not need to fix them. Like the ocean, your body knows how to release if given safety. All you need to do is remain still, not resisting, not rushing. At its deepest level, this story of the ocean is not about disaster, but about loyalty to movement. The Earth does not betray its energy. It does not pretend to be calm when it is not. It allows things to unfold slowly, fully, precisely. And perhaps in understanding this, your mind can soften as well. Not every feeling needs an explanation. Not every disturbance needs immediate understanding. Some things only need permission to pass. Like a wave far from shore, low, deep, and complete, the ocean is still moving, even as you close your eyes. And in that movement, there is an ancient safety whispering softly, "You may rest now." Part 3. The Moon, the Tides and Ancient Collisions. Beneath the quiet night sky, as the moon's soft light spreads across the Earth, few people remember that this familiar beauty may have been born from one of the most violent events in Earth's history. Modern science suggests that more than 4 billion years ago, when our planet was still young and fragile, a massive celestial body, often referred to by the provisional name Theia, collided with the Earth in an event of primordial significance. It was not total destruction, but a collision, powerful enough to melt rock, eject matter into space, and from that cloud of debris the moon slowly formed, circling the Earth like a memory that never left. At first glance, this is a story of fire and chaos. But when viewed through a slower lens, the lens of deep time and of a mind drifting towards sleep, a familiar pattern of nature appears from collision, arises order from injury, emerges rhythm from upheaval, comes long-lasting stability. The moon, born of that ancient impact, became a silent regulator of this planet. It steadies Earth's axis, preventing chaotic wobble. It draws the tides in and out, creating life-rich coastlines. It influences climate, biological cycles, and even the way living beings sense time. In Carl Gustav Jung's psychology, there is an idea closely aligned with this story. Major psychological events do not disappear. They become foundational structures. A deep shock within the unconscious, whether trauma or a formative experience, may initially bring chaos, but over time, it can become the center around which the personality reorganizes itself. Like the moon, these inner collisions no longer roar after millions of years, yet their influence quietly regulates emotion, rhythm, and our responses to the world. The tides are the clearest expression of the inseparable bond between sky and earth. The oceans rise and fall, not because of wind, nor human intention, but because of the moon's gentle yet persistent gravitational pull, subtle enough not to destroy, yet steady enough to repeat for billions of years. Jung emphasized that the unconscious works in a similar way, not shouting, not forcing, but drawing us toward ancient patterns and symbols that existed long before we were born. We may believe we are free, yet beneath awareness, psychological tides are always moving. When night falls and moonlight filters through the window, you may feel a softness difficult to name. This is not only physical light. It is an ancient rhythm your body and nervous system learned to trust long ago. Humanity evolved under moonlight, hunting, resting, giving birth, and dreaming within its cycles. Even though electric light has blurred this connection, our biological rhythms still remember it. The moon is not merely a celestial object. It is a slow, enduring emotional clock. The idea that sky and earth share a single material history brings a quiet comfort. It tells us that we do not live in a divided universe where what is above is alien to what is below. The atoms in your bones and the rocks on the moon once belonged to the same chaotic cloud of matter. From Jung's perspective, this touches the deep symbol of unity, where meaning arises from recognizing that we belong to something larger. And as you lie still, preparing for sleep, you do not need to understand all the scientific details. It is enough to feel that your breath and heartbeat are also moving within ancient rhythms. The moon continues its orbit. The tides continue their rise and fall. The collisions happened long ago, but their outcomes are still gently rocking the planet into balance. Just as with your own mind, old events have settled. Deep influences remain, but they no longer hurt. They simply keep you in your orbit. And in the moon's dim light, you may allow yourself to drift into sleep, knowing that both sky and earth are quietly supporting you, as they have for billions of years. If you listen closely, you may realize that the story of the moon is not only the history of a celestial body, but a profound metaphor for how order emerges from chaos. In Earth's earliest moments, there was no stability, no clear day and night, no steady rhythm for life to rely on. Only movement, collision, extreme heat, and time beyond human comprehension. Within this chaos, the ancient impact, seemingly catastrophic, became the condition for lasting balance. From Jung's viewpoint, this motif repeats across all layers of existence. The ego does not grow in perfect calm, but through encounters with what is different. Without conflict, without fragmentation, there is no consciousness. Just as Earth needed an external force to create the moon, the human psyche often begins to recognize itself only after experiences that disrupt old structures. What follows is not endless ruin, but a new order, more refined, more resilient. The tides on the surface appear to be nothing more than water rising and falling, yet in depth, they are a wordless dialogue between Earth and Moon. The ocean neither resists nor surrenders completely. It responds rhythmically, day after day. So too with human emotion. When allowed to move within safe limits, it nourishes rather than destroys. Jung emphasized that psychological health is not the absence of fluctuation, but the capacity to endure and integrate it. Across many ancient cultures, the moon has been linked to the unconscious, to dreams, to what is not fully illuminated. This is no accident. Its light is not direct but reflected, just as the unconscious reflects its contents onto consciousness through images, symbols, and subtle feelings. When you dream, your mind follows its own lunar cycle. Logic softens, images rise, time stretches and contracts. And just as the tides do not require human attention to continue, the unconscious does not require full understanding to do its work. It only asks to be respected and allowed. That is why before sleep, releasing the need to control, analyze, or remember becomes so important. In this state, you stop trying to do something with the mind and allow it to regulate itself, like the ocean yielding to the moon's pull. When you consider the material bond between sky and earth, between moon and planet, a deep reassurance may arise. Nothing in you is separate from the universe. The atoms that form your body once drifted through space, part of processes far older than any human life. This does not erase personal worries, but it places them within a wider frame of time where change is allowed to be slow. As the night continues, the moon remains, even if unseen. The tides continue, even if no one stands at the shore. The earth keeps turning even as you close your eyes. You do not need to hold everything together. This planet learned balance long ago, and now you can do the same. Allow the body to grow heavy. Allow thoughts to blur like moonlight behind thin clouds. Allow ancient rhythms to do their work. Sky and earth once collided to create stability. Your mind too may rest knowing no further effort is needed to be safe in this moment. Part 4. Drifting continents and mountains, built by patience. Beneath what appears to be a motionless world, the earth is constantly shifting. The continents we name, draw borders around, and fix into maps in our minds are, in truth, thin fragments of crust, drifting extremely slowly, centimeter by centimeter each year, over an ocean of fire and immense pressure. This movement is too slow to see, too long for a human lifetime to feel, yet persistent enough to raise the highest mountain ranges on the planet. Listening to this story before sleep invites us to step out of human urgency and into a deeper rhythm of time, where nothing needs to hurry to become great. The collision of tectonic plates is not a violent crash as imagination suggests. Most of the time, it is a slow, relentless pressure, like two invisible hands pressing together for tens of millions of years. The Himalayas were not born in an explosion, but through Earth's near-infinite patience. India is still drifting northward, still pressing into Eurasia at this very moment, and the mountains continue to rise very slowly, very quietly. There is something deeply comforting in this truth. The greatest things do not need speed. From Carl Jung's perspective, this becomes a powerful archetypal image of psychological development. The ego does not mature in a single moment of illumination, but through silent collisions between different parts of the self. Consciousness and the unconscious resemble tectonic plates when they avoid one another. The surface may remain calm. When they meet, tension arises, and from that tension, new structures are formed. The inner mountains of human life, depth, resilience, maturity, are built by time, not by sudden willpower. Earthquakes from a distance appear frightening, yet at a deeper level they are signs of necessary movement. The earth releases pressure when it can no longer contain it. The human mind works the same way. When emotions are suppressed too long, when unacknowledged thoughts accumulate, shaking becomes inevitable. Jung did not view inner crises as mistakes, but as signals that an old structure needs reorganization, not destruction, but rebalancing. What is remarkable is that today humans can measure these tiny movements with GPS. Cold numbers, millimeters, centimeters confirm a poetic truth. Even the slowest things are moving forward. In this context, personal worries about not being fast enough or far enough begin to soften. If a mountain needs tens of millions of years to form, perhaps human growth does not need to be rushed through a few short seasons. As night deepens and the narration slows, the image of continents drifting in silence can become a lullaby. No noise, no spotlight, only the anonymous persistence of time. You do not need to arrive anywhere right now. You do not need to complete or prove anything in this moment. The earth continues building mountains while you rest. Your mind too can continue its own process, even as you release conscious effort. And so, in the stillness of night, the planet offers a gentle lesson. All deep transformations take time. All heights are raised by patience. And sometimes rest itself is how we continue moving forward. Part 5. The river that is not loyal. There is a common illusion when humans look at nature that what we see today will remain forever. The river flowing through the village, winding across fields, reflecting the sky each evening, seems to promise stability, but the earth makes no such promises. A river, no matter how gentle, is not loyal to its shape. Given enough time, rivers change course not because they want to, but because the ground beneath them shifts. When land rises slowly, When a slope tilts by the slightest angle, water seeking the path of least resistance quietly turns elsewhere. There is no explosion, no dramatic moment. Year by year, century by century, the old channel weakens and the new one strengthens until one day the map must be redrawn. In geology, this is called river capture, when a steeper, stronger river silently diverts the waters of a neighboring basin. From above, it is a full system reorganization. From the ground, people simply notice a familiar river drying up and another growing unexpectedly. This reminds us that the deepest changes are often the quietest. Jung observed that the human psyche changes in much the same way. Inner transformation rarely comes through dramatic turning points. Most shifts occur unconsciously, like a river changing course. We do not decide overnight to become someone else. We tilt slightly. An old value loses energy. A new interest quietly strengthens. And one day we realize we are living in a different inner landscape. The landforms shaped by rivers, valleys, plains, deltas appear solid, yet they are temporary results of flow. When water changes direction, the landscape changes too. This can feel unsettling, but it also carries a deep reassurance. No state is permanently trapped. What feels unchangeable today may over time be reshaped. Many people suffer because they believe this is just how I am. But the earth never defines itself by a fixed form. It allows rivers to turn land, to erode old paths, to disappear. Jung called this process individuation, becoming oneself. Not by remaining the same, but by continuously adjusting to deeper forces within. As you listen now, perhaps there is a tired river within you. Perhaps you are holding to an old path out of fear of change. Remember, water does not betray. It is only loyal to movement. And sometimes the greatest kindness we can offer ourselves is permission to flow in a new direction slowly, without explanation. You do not need to know where the river is going. The earth does not know its landscapes millions of years ahead. It simply continues trusting deep time. And in this moment you can do the same. Loosen control, let the mind settle like still water, allow necessary shifts to unfold in silence. As your breath slows and your eyelids grow heavy, imagine yourself resting beside an ancient river. It does not rush, hesitate, or cling to any shape except the act of flowing itself. In its gentle sound, you may let yourself drift into sleep, trusting that whatever tomorrow brings, the deep currents within you know their way. Part 6. A planet renewed. Beneath the ocean, beneath the pursed, deep blue surface of the ocean, where sunlight fades and sound becomes distant, the earth is quietly renewing itself. Few imagine that most volcanic activity does not occur on familiar land, but deep beneath the sea, in darkness, pressure, and near total stillness. There, the planet does not rest. It breathes. It moves. It continuously gives birth to new skin. Mid-ocean ridges stretch tens of thousands of kilometers, like slow, patient stitches, where Earth's crust pulls apart millimeter by millimeter. From these cracks, molten rock rises, meets cold water, and solidifies into new stone. No roar, no dramatic eruption. This process unfolds steadily for millions of years. The ocean floor is not a graveyard, but a living workshop, where the planet renews itself moment by moment. Jung emphasized that what is deepest in the human being rarely appears in conscious light. The unconscious, like the ocean floor, is where the most fundamental transformations occur. We do not see it daily yet. From it, the structure of inner life is continually rebuilt. Just as oceanic crust is created and then subducted back into the mantle, thoughts, emotions, and memories are formed, worn down and dissolved into deeper layers beyond words. At depths where life seems impossible, hydrothermal vents appear strange oases releasing mineral-rich heat. Around them, life thrives without sunlight. Bacteria transform chemical energy into nourishment, sustaining entire ecosystems. This image mirrors a Jungian truth. Life, psychological as well as biological, does not arise only from what is bright and conscious. Some of the most vital parts of us are nourished by darkness, silence, and unnamed experience. The ocean floor also teaches complete recycling. No crust is kept forever. Nothing is wasted. Everything returns to become material for something new. Jung described this as the movement toward wholeness, where even buried parts serve the totality. When we see Earth this way, it is no longer a static stage, but a self-regulating being. And within this image lies a gentle comfort. Within each of us exists a similar ocean floor. Even when consciousness is tired, deeper processes of healing and reorganization continue slowly, steadily, without our intervention. Sleep is when we come closest to that depth. As conscious light softens, as the body relaxes, and breath evens out, the unconscious begins its work, recycling the day, forming new connections, nurturing seeds unseen in daylight. We do not need to understand or control it. We only need enough safety to let go. And so, as this story of undersea renewal fades, you may carry the image into sleep, a planet quietly remaking itself in darkness. Just as you are now lying still, breathing slowly, letting ancient processes continue their work. Nothing more is required. Everything important is still happening. Even as you close your eyes. Part 7. Unusual forms of volcanoes. Beneath the familiar word, volcano, the human mind often imagines glowing rivers of lava, thunderous roars, and immediate destruction. Yet the Earth, much like the human psyche in the view of Carl Gustav Jung, is always richer and more complex than our habitual images. Not every volcano breathes fire, not every release is loud, and not every transformation wears the face of devastation. There are strange kinds of volcanoes, quiet, slow, almost secretive, like the planet's whispers gently reshaping the surface of the world, just as the unconscious quietly reorganizes a person when consciousness has fallen asleep. Mud volcanoes, for instance, do not carry the heat of molten lava. They rise instead from gas pressure and fluids compressed deep underground. Columns of cool gray mud push upward, spill outward, then slowly settle, forming shapes that are soft and ever-changing. In places such as Azerbaijan, Indonesia, or beneath deep ocean floors, these mud volcanoes operate without high temperatures, without fire. Yet they are still the result of an inner process that can no longer be contained. Pressure accumulates, and eventually it finds a way out. In Jungian language, this closely resembles emotions, memories, or impulses that have been repressed. They do not always erupt as dramatic crises. Sometimes they emerge as lingering fatigue, recurring dreams, or a nameless sense of emptiness. But like mud volcanoes, this release is still necessary. It lightens the inner system. It prevents pressure from building to the point where the entire structure might fracture. Then there are ice volcanoes, cryovolcanoes found on frozen worlds such as Enceladus or Europa. There, instead of molten rock, water, ammonia, or liquid methane is expelled into environments of extreme cold. Columns of ice shoot into space, fall back down, and freeze again, creating new surfaces. In such places, life, if it exists, does not rely on sunlight or heat. It needs only energy, movement, and time. This image carries a profound psychological resonance. Not all inner life grows in moments of warmth and brilliance. Some parts of us mature only in silence, in coldness, in phases that feel frozen and barren. Jung emphasized that darkness is not the opposite of life, but its soil. What has not yet been warmed by consciousness can still nurture potential as long as energy continues to flow beneath the surface. There are also chemical eruptions where toxic gases, sulfur, or other compounds seep from the earth without forming a classic volcano. These processes quietly alter local atmospheres, influence ecosystems, and leave lasting traces in rock and soil. They are not dramatic, not attention-grabbing, yet they shape living environments in deep ways. Likewise, in psychological life, not every important change comes with intense emotion. Some transformations occur gradually through very small, barely noticeable shifts, until one day we look back and realize we are no longer the same. What all these unusual volcanoes share is not their appearance but their essence, pressure seeking release. When energy is trapped for too long, when movement is blocked, the system finds a way to discharge itself. The Earth does not decide to erupt. It follows deep internal laws. Similarly, in Jungian psychology, behaviors, dreams, or symptoms are not personal failures but ways the mind-body system restores balance. Seen this way, volcanoes invite us to soften our fear of change. Eruption is not only destruction, it is regulation. It opens space for new surfaces, new landscapes, new possibilities that did not exist before. And sometimes a gentle, almost unnoticed release is the safest way for a system to continue functioning. As you listen to these stories before sleep, you do not need to remember names or mechanisms. What matters more is sensing the shared rhythm. Everything in nature and within you seeks movement. No emotion exists without reason. No pressure accumulates without leaving a sign. And no form of release is wrong. In the quiet darkness of night, as consciousness loosens its grip, the unconscious, like the planet's strange volcanoes, may choose its own way to release what no longer needs to be held. Perhaps through a vague dream, perhaps through a deeper breath, perhaps simply as a subtle lightness as you drift toward sleep. You do not need to push this process. Just as with the Earth, you do not need to fully understand it for regulation to occur. Trust that beneath awareness, an ancient intelligence is at work. It knows which pressure needs release. It knows the pace that is safe. And it will continue quietly, even after you have fallen asleep. If you listen even more deeply, you may realize that these unusual volcanoes do not only renew the Earth's surface, they also teach a silent lesson about the rhythm of life. Not every transformation requires a climax. Not every change must be noticed immediately. Some processes are just strong enough to continue, not loud enough to draw attention. And it is these that form the most enduring foundations. In the inner world, Jung called this the self-regulating work of the unconscious. When consciousness grows tired, when the ego loosens control, inner forces begin to rearrange themselves. Like pressure systems deep underground, they do not ask permission. They only need space. And sleep is the safest space for this to happen. Mud volcanoes do not leave grand craters. Ice volcanoes do not blanket skies with ash. Yet they leave behind new layers, unusual structures, and new conditions for life. In the same way, emotions released gently at night do not create dramatic turning points. But in the morning we awaken feeling different, perhaps lighter, perhaps softer, perhaps simply less tense. This is especially important for those accustomed to controlled discipline and constant stability. Jung warned that excessive stability can become stagnation. When flow ceases, pressure builds. And when pressure lacks a safe outlet, it eventually erupts more painfully. The Earth learned this over billions of years of evolution. Humans, if they listen, can learn it too. Chemical volcanoes, where toxic gases seep out quietly, also remind us of unpleasant but necessary emotions. Jealousy, anger, boredom, if completely denied, do not vanish. They merely change form. But if acknowledged as signals as pressure needing release, they can exit slowly without damaging the entire psychological structure. When we see the Earth as a living body, we stop demanding that it be gentle by human standards. And when we see ourselves as living systems, we stop blaming ourselves for imperfect emotions. Volcanoes are not bad. Pressure is not wrong. They are simply signs of movement. At this hour of the night, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breathing slows, you do not need to think about lava, mud, or ice. Simply sense one quiet truth, somewhere very deep. Both the planet and your own mind are working to maintain balance. No hurry, no judgment, no audience. And like the strangest volcanoes of all, the most important transformations within you may be happening in ways you do not notice, gentle enough not to wake you deep enough to change you over time. You can let this happen. Just keep breathing slowly, keep lying still, and allow both the Earth and yourself to do their quiet work. Part 8. Dust, Ash, and Invisible Pathways of Nourishment. From the perspective of Earth science, dust and ash are often seen as leftovers, residue, after major events such as volcanic eruptions or prolonged desert winds. But when we listen more slowly, look more deeply, we begin to see that these tiny particles are quietly sustaining life itself. They are not loud, not celebrated, yet they travel farther than any river or organism. In silence, ash and dust become messengers of nourishment, connection, and planetary memory. Volcanic ash, after the initial violence subsides, falls like a fine rain. Within each particle lie precious minerals: iron, phosphorus, potassium, calcium. When these settle into the ocean waters that once seemed poor suddenly awaken. Phytoplankton bloom food chains, restart fish, and marine life return. An eruption in a distant place may months or years later nourish ecosystems thousands of kilometers away. The Earth never works in isolation. Every movement leaves an echo. Desert dust behaves in much the same way. Tiny grains from the Sahara can cross entire oceans on the wind, reaching the Amazon, the largest rainforest on the planet. There they replace minerals washed away by heavy rains, nourishing soil and roots. A barren desert, seemingly the opposite of lush forest, becomes a silent source of life for that forest. Life does not operate by separation, but by compensation, support, and interconnection. Wind is the planet's patient courier. It carries no spoken messages, only particles. Each breeze is an invisible road, linking continents and seas, volcanoes and oceans, dryness and abundance. The wind does not choose. It simply transports. And through this transport, the Earth regulates itself, heals itself, redistributes resources. Seen through Jung's lens, this phenomenon becomes a powerful image of inner life. Small experiences, fleeting emotions, seemingly insignificant memories like dust and ash are what nourish psychological depth. Not the most dramatic moments, but the quiet, repeated, accumulated ones shape the inner structure of a person. There are small sadnesses that, if ignored, settle like fine dust. But if accepted and left undisturbed, they can become nourishment for understanding. There are forms of tiredness too subtle to stop us, yet persistent enough to teach us to slow down. As in ecosystems, the smallest particles often have the greatest impact. This becomes especially important at night. During the day, consciousness prefers what is clear, defined, and nameable. At night, the unconscious begins working with what is most vague. It gathers the dust of the day, a passing glance, an unfinished sentence, a fleeting sadness without a clear reason. In sleep, these particles are mixed, rearranged, and sometimes give rise to deep transformation. The Earth does not label anything as absolute waste. Volcanic ash is not discarded. Desert dust is not considered useless. Everything can become life, if placed in the right context, at the right time. Jung believed the mind operates the same way. No experience is entirely meaningless, only waiting to become nourishment. When we understand this, we stop rushing to eliminate discomfort. We stop trying to empty ourselves before sleep. Instead, we allow small, faint things to settle, like ash after eruption, like dust after a long journey. And in that settling, a new order quietly forms. In ecology, tiny particles determine ocean productivity, forest vitality, and the global carbon cycle. In psychology, tiny impressions determine safety, emotional depth, and resilience. Both require time. Nothing happens instantly, and nothing is wasted. So in this moment, as you listen and your body begins to grow heavy, you do not need to do anything. You do not need to clear your thoughts. You do not need to force relaxation. Let the dust of today be carried by the night wind, arranged by the unconscious in its own way. You do not need to see the path. It exists. Like the Earth's invisible nourishment pathways, your mind knows how to feed itself. And as you drift towards sleep, this process continues quiet, steady, and wise. If we observe patiently, we see that these invisible pathways are not only physical, but a perfect metaphor for the inner world. Jung emphasized that small, overlooked elements often serve as gateways to the unconscious. Like fine dust in the air, they cannot be grasped, yet they are always present, always influencing. A fleeting memory, a nameless feeling, a blur before sleep, these are like cooled volcanic ash. No longer violent, no longer burning, yet still carrying the energy of deeper processes. The unconscious does not require drama. It needs repetition settling, and small elements sufficient to nourish new structures. No ecosystem exists alone. Oceans need desert dust. Forests need volcanic minerals. The atmosphere needs tiny particles to form clouds and rain. Likewise, the human mind does not stand on grand thoughts alone, but on thousands of small experiences accumulated over time. What seems insignificant becomes the ground of emotional safety. By day, consciousness privileges clarity and form. By night, another part takes over the part without language. Like the earth, at night, when winds still blow, currents still move, and dust still falls unseen. You may lie still, yet something subtle continues inside. Some nights bring no clear dreams, no images, no stories. That does not mean nothing happened. Like the deep ocean where light never reaches, life continues through invisible energy. The mind does not need memory, understanding, or control. It only needs space. Jung believed true healing rarely comes from direct effort. It comes from allowing small elements to exist, allowing emotions to settle without explanation, allowing psychological dust to find its place. When that happens, a new order forms naturally. In this way, sleep is not a pause of consciousness, but the space where the most delicate processes occur. The Earth's invisible nutrient pathways mirror associative pathways in the unconscious, linking memory to emotion past, to new meaning, scattered parts, into a softer whole. You do not need to clean your mind before sleep. The Earth never cleans itself by eliminating all dust. It redistributes, it reuses, it transforms. Your mind is designed to do the same. Everything you carry today, heavy or light, can become material for balance tomorrow. So, if now you find yourself drifting between wakefulness and sleep, between hearing and not fully hearing each word, this is not a failure of attention. It is a sign you are moving in the right direction. Like dust descending from the upper atmosphere to the ground, your awareness is settling back into the body. Let the breath slow further. Let the shoulders and jaw soften. You do not need to follow the story anymore. The invisible pathways have been activated. And like the earth, your mind knows exactly what to do next, even when you are no longer awake to witness it. Part 9. The iron heart of the planet far beneath the days. Familiar ground we walk upon each day. Something is constantly in motion. Not loudly, not visibly, without needing to be seen. It is the Earth's core, a vast ocean of molten metal, quietly turning in absolute darkness. If the Earth were a living body, this would be its iron heart. We often think life is protected by the atmosphere, or by the Earth's perfect distance from the Sunday. Few realize that the planet's most important shield is born from this hidden movement. As liquid metal in the outer core circulates around the solid inner core, it generates an invisible force, the magnetic field that envelops the entire planet like a silent embrace. The magnetic field has no shape, no color, no sound. Yet without it, solar winds would gradually strip away the atmosphere, cosmic radiation would bombard the surface, and life as we know it might never have existed. The peaceful sky we gaze at each night is the result of a fierce, persistent, unseen motion deep within. Jung observed that the most important forces in human psychology do not reside in consciousness. They lie deeper in the unconscious, where there is no language, only movement. Like the Earth's core, the unconscious does not need to be seen to fulfill its role. It only needs to keep moving. The Earth's magnetic field is not fixed. Over millions of years it has weakened, strengthened, even fully reversed. North became south. South became north. These shifts did not happen overnight, but unfolded slowly like dreams stretching across generations. Each time, cooling rock recorded the ancient directions within its crystal structure. Rocks remember. The earth remembers. The planet holds memory not through words but through structure. Just as the human mind stores experience not as clear narratives but as sensations, reflexes, and tendencies, Jung called this unconscious memory traces left by what we have lived even when conscious recall fades. Each time the magnetic field changes, the Earth does not panic. It does not rush to fix itself. It continues moving, sometimes weaker, sometimes chaotic, and then a new order forms. A new field emerges. Life adapts. This is a gentle, profound lesson the Earth whispers to us each night. Safety does not always come from absolute stability. Sometimes it comes from the ability to reorganize after change. Not because nothing ever shifts, but because a strong core continues to move within. In depth psychology, Jung taught that the ego is only the surface. What truly prevents a person from shattering under life's pressures is a deeper center, the self, quiet, non-judgmental, needing no proof. The self resembles the Earth's core, powerful, contained, sustaining the whole without burning it. When you feel tired, anxious, or lost, it may not mean you are weak. It may mean your inner magnetic field is adjusting. A slow, subtle, necessary change. And like the Earth, you do not need to force it to stop. You only need to allow it. Now, as the night deepens and your breath slows, imagine that beneath the body you are resting, an entire planet is at work. Not for you, not against you, but with you. The core keeps turning. The magnetic field keeps holding, and the sky above remains safe. You do not need to stand guard over the world. The Earth has done that for billions of years unseen. And in the same way, the deepest part of you is still working even as you let consciousness sink. If you now feel sleepier, heavier in the eyes, less able to follow each word, that is a very good sign. As consciousness retreats, the unconscious speaks through stillness. No need to understand. No need to remember. Just let everything move at its own pace. The iron heart of the planet is still beating, slow, deep, enduring. And so are you. And if you listen very slowly, very deeply, you may notice something strange. The Earth has never required our wakefulness to keep us safe. It does not demand attention. It does not ask for gratitude. The magnetic field continues to cradle the planet, even as all of humanity sleeps. On some nights when auroras appear, soft curtains of light breathing across the sky, they are not signs of danger, but proof that the Earth is still conversing with the Sunday. Particles from distant space meet the magnetosphere, guided toward the poles, and glow, a silent dialogue between the deepest within and the farthest beyond. Jung believed maturity begins when we realize we are not the center of everything, that greater, older forces move both outside and within us. When we stop trying to control every thought and emotion, and allow ourselves to be supported by deeper structures, peace naturally arises. The magnetic field is not rigid. It wavers. It tilts, then rebalances. There were times it weakened enough for cosmic light to penetrate deeper into the atmosphere. Yet the Earth did not collapse. Life did not vanish. Instead, everything adapted. New forms emerged. New ways of living appeared. In the human psyche, periods of instability often feel the same. When inner poles reverse, when what we once trusted feels strange, and what we feared feels familiar. Disorientation is natural. But like rocks remembering ancient magnetism, the psyche remembers how to endure change. You do not need to fear the quiet changes happening within you. They are not signs of breakdown. They are signs of deep reorganization. And reorganization always requires time, darkness, and silence. The Earth's core is hot enough to melt metal, yet its surface remains cool enough for life. This balance between energy and containment is what Jung called holding the opposites, where opposing forces coexist to create wholeness. You are living within such a balance right now, between fatigue and rest, between thought and release, between day and deep night. Like the Earth, you do not need to choose sides. You only need to let each force remain where it belongs. As you lie still, imagine thousands of kilometers of rock and metal beneath you moving slowly, not rushing, not stopping, never out of rhythm. And it is this deep rhythm that allows the surface to remain calm. If your breathing slows, if thoughts fragment, if images blur, this is not distraction. It is direction downward into the safe territory of the unconscious. The earth never stops moving, but it never panics either. And you, in this moment, can learn to be like the planet you live on, moving deeply while resting on the surface. You do not need to stay awake for everything to be okay. Part 10. Light in the night. The aurora beneath the quiet night sky, when most of the world has already drifted into sleep. There are places where light unexpectedly appears, not loudly, not blindingly, but soft, like a breath. This is the aurora, a phenomenon that belongs not only to physics, but also touches something very ancient in the human emotional world. From a scientific perspective, the aurora is the result of a direct interaction between Earth and space. The solar wind carries energetic particles that rush outward, collide with the magnetosphere, and are guided down into the atmosphere, where they begin to glow. But if we listen at a slower pace, like the way Carl Gustav Jung encouraged us to listen to the symbols of the unconscious, we can feel that there is more here than explanation alone. The aurora is a reminder that Earth is not isolated. This planet does not exist as a silent stone drifting through endless space, but as a living participant in relationship with the sun, with invisible streams of energy, with the pulse of the larger universe. Jung believed that human beings are much the same, not closed-off egos, but open systems, constantly exchanging with the world around us, through emotion, image, memory, and through subtle vibrations that consciousness cannot always name. The beauty of the aurora is not something designed to please human eyes. It is the natural consequence of unseen forces performing their proper work. And this is precisely what makes that beauty so comforting. It tells us that beauty does not need to come from perfection or control. It can arise from a fragile balance between opposing forces, light and darkness, order and chaos, stillness and motion. In the human psyche, the most beautiful moments often appear in this way as well, without warning, without effort, simply as the result of allowing emotional currents to pass through. When people witness the aurora, many describe a feeling of becoming smaller. Not in a negative sense, but as if the weight of the ego lightens, as if there is less to carry. Jung referred to this as a moment of ego transcendence, when we touch something larger than ourselves, older than ourselves. In such moments, personal anxieties recede, making space for a very primal sense of safety, the feeling of being held by structures greater and more enduring than the individual self. The aurora also reminds us that light does not exist only during the day. There are kinds of light that appear only when night has fallen, when conditions become quiet enough for them to reveal themselves. Similarly, in inner life, there are understandings that arrive only when we stop trying to analyze, when we stop forcing ourselves to remain alert. As consciousness steps back, the unconscious gains room to speak through images, sensations, or simply through a wordless sense of peace. In the slow rhythm of the night, the aurora becomes a gentle symbol, a symbol of silent communication. Earth does not speak, the sun does not reply, yet energy is exchanged, regulated, balanced. Human beings are the same. You do not need to resolve every thought before sleep. You do not need to understand everything that is happening inside you. You only need to allow yourself to remain receptive, like the night sky opening itself to receive the northern lights. And when that light gradually fades, when the sky returns to darkness, nothing is lost. Everything simply returns to its resting rhythm. Just as you, when you close your eyes now, do not disappear from the world, you simply withdraw from the noisy layer of consciousness, allowing deeper currents to continue their work. In that quiet, Earth is still conversing with the Sunday, and within you another gentle dialogue is also unfolding, safe enough, slow enough to guide you deeper into sleep. If we listen more closely, we realize that the aurora is not a rare event, but a quietly repeating process. Every day, the sun continues to send out winds of energetic particles. Every day, Earth's magnetic field opens like an invisible cocoon, protecting and guiding. Only when conditions are right, when the sky is dark enough, when artificial light recedes, do humans get to see what has always been there. This mirrors inner life exactly. It is not that emotion or depth does not exist, but that most of the time it is obscured by noise, obligation, and daytime urgency. Jung emphasized that the most powerful symbols do not need to be rationally explained. They need to be experienced. The aurora is such a symbol. It does not require knowledge of physics to move us. A child, a scientist, or someone weary from ordinary life can all stand beneath those lights and feel the same thing, the presence of a larger, gentler order beyond personal concerns. In-depth psychology, Jung called this the moment when the ego touches the self, the broader center of the psyche, where individual and cosmos are no longer sharply divided. When you witness the aurora, you are not simply watching a natural phenomenon. You are participating in a meeting between inside and outside, between physical light and symbolic light. And that meeting brings a very ancient sense of safety, like a child knowing that something greater is keeping watch through the night. The aurora also teaches us about rhythm. It does not appear constantly, and it does not last forever. It arrives, undulates, and then dissolves. There is no attempt to hold it, no regret when it fades. Within this lies a lesson perfectly suited to sleep. Every state has the right to arrive and the right to leave. The emotions of the day, whether anxiety, sadness, or tension, are like streams of energetic particles. They meet, your inner magnetosphere may flare briefly into strong sensation and then eventually settle. When you allow yourself to rest, you strengthen that psychological magnetosphere. You do not need to push thoughts away nor cling to wakefulness. You simply allow everything to move at its natural pace. Jung believed that sleep is a vital gateway into the unconscious, a place where the psyche heals, organizes, and balances itself. And just as the aurora appears only when the sky is dark enough, the deepest things within you emerge only when consciousness loosens its grip. In this stillness, imagine the earth turning slowly beneath you, wrapped in a soft magnetic field, unseen yet immensely strong. Imagine bands of light curving near the poles, not for anyone, but because natural laws are fully at work. And somewhere in this quiet symmetry, your nervous system is also shifting into rest. Heart rate slowing, breath deepening, thoughts thinning out. You do not need to do anything more. No need to remember facts. No need to hold images. Simply allow the light in your imagination to fade as the aurora dissolves into the northern darkness. Earth continues to communicate with space. The universe continues to move. And you, safe in this moment, may allow yourself to drift more lightly, more deeply, into the sleep that is already waiting. Part 11. Meteorites, Impacts and Hidden Traces. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, the story of meteorites and Earth's ancient impacts is not only a geological history, but also a quiet metaphor for inner life, where great events once occurred, left their marks, and were gradually covered by time, by adaptation, by the need to continue living. If we look at Earth from very far away, the planet appears peaceful, deep blue oceans, stretching continents, a gentle atmosphere embracing the surface. Yet beneath that appearance lies a silent truth. Earth has been struck far more often than our eyes can recognize today. In the early eras of the solar system, space was chaotic, filled with debris, asteroids, and wandering meteorites. The young Earth endured countless violent impacts, each powerful enough to reshape its surface, alter climate, and even redirect the course of life itself. And yet, most of those wounds have disappeared. Not because they never existed, but because Earth possesses a remarkable ability, the ability to cover memory with continued life. Winds blew, rains fell, glaciers moved, oceans rose and retreated. Mountains eroded, craters flattened, shattered rock buried beneath layers of sediment. The sea, vast and patient, swallowed countless traces, leaving behind a surface that appears calm. Over time, the memory of impact did not vanish. It withdrew into deeper layers beyond ordinary sight. Jung observed that the human psyche works in much the same way. Trauma and powerful life events do not always remain clearly visible in consciousness. Most are eroded by years, covered by layers of adaptation, social roles, and survival habits. The surface of the mind may stabilize, but this does not mean the past never happened. It rests quietly like ancient impact craters beneath the ocean floor. For this reason, geology does not search only for obvious craters. Scientists learn to listen for subtle signs, shocked minerals. When a meteorite strikes at extreme speed, immense pressure alters the crystal structure of rock. Quartz may show microscopic deformation. Minerals compress in ways possible only during impact. These minerals are not loud. They do not announce themselves. They lie quietly, underground, faithful witnesses, speaking only when someone is patient enough to look and sensitive enough to recognize them. This mirrors how the unconscious stores human experience. Not every memory exists as a clear story. Many survive only as bodily sensations, unnamed reactions, or a slight tightness in the chest, an unease without origin. Jung believed the unconscious does not forget. It simply records experience in the language of symbol and sensation, just as stone remembers impact through structure rather than image. When we hear about ancient meteorites, we are reminded that not seeing a wound does not mean it never existed. But this is not a threat, it is a deep comfort. For if Earth, after countless violent impacts, could still become a green planet capable of sustaining life, then human beings share that capacity. What once fell into our lives, what once shook our inner structure, may have been covered, transformed, and integrated by time and by new life. In the context of sleep, this story is not meant to stir anxiety, but to create a very ancient sense of safety. You do not need to excavate memories. You do not need to resolve every trace. Just as Earth does not actively erase impact memory, but simply continues to move and renew itself, your mind is doing the same each night. When you sleep, consciousness retreats, and deeper layers are allowed to soften, reorder, and place everything where it belongs. Notice that shocked minerals do not weaken the Earth. They simply testify that the planet survived, and the faint traces within you are the same. They are not evidence of fragility, but of endurance and adaptation. As you lie down and close your eyes, you allow your own inner planet to continue this quiet work, protecting, integrating, and resting. You do not need to remember everything you have heard. Just feel one simple truth: even the greatest impacts can become a quiet part of history. And in this moment, as everything slows, there is nothing left to collide. Only the gentle support of time, of the body, and of sleep drawing very near. If we continue listening to the story of hidden impact traces, we discover something important. Earth does not rush to tell its history. It does not keep craters as complaints, nor display scars as proof of suffering. It simply continues to turn, to breathe through wind, to flow through water, to move within warm rock. And this continuation itself is the deepest answer to every collision that ever occurred. In earth science, this is called renewal. In depth psychology, it is integration, not erasure, not denial, but allowing an event to become part of a larger whole. Shocked minerals are not removed from the crust. They remain quietly in place, memory put where it belongs. And because of this, they do not disturb the present. Human beings are the same. Many powerful life experiences, losses, sudden changes, moments that shattered us over time no longer appear as clear images. They become background, feeling depth in how we respond to the world. We may forget the event, but the body remembers the heartbeat. We may lose the story, but retain a quiet vigilance, or sometimes a quiet gratitude. This is not a failure of memory. It is memory that has matured. Just as Earth does not need to preserve every crater to prove its past, the human mind does not need to hold every experience in sharp focus to survive. Some things need only remain present enough to shape us, but not so large that they wound the present. Thinking of ancient meteorites invites reflection on surface fragility and deep resilience. The planet's surface changes quickly. Mountains erode, seas shift, rivers change course. But far below, the larger structure remains continuous. The psyche has the same architecture. Daily thoughts come and go like small waves, while beneath them lies a deeper, slower foundation, where major experiences are stored quietly. This is why before sleep we often feel a softening. As lights dim and noise fades, the surface of consciousness grows less busy and deeper layers are allowed to breathe. Not to retell stories, but to reorganize inner order like sediment settling after a storm. Imagine Earth during a very long night with no humans watching. Processes continue, tectonic plates drift imperceptibly, the metal core keeps turning, the magnetic field continues protecting the atmosphere. Nothing needs attention, nothing needs control, and precisely because of this, the planet remains safe. Human sleep works the same way. You do not need to guard your mind. You do not need to ensure every memory is fine. What needs to be kept, the unconscious will keep. What needs to soften, time will soften. What needs covering, life will cover with new layers of experience. So if you sometimes sense things within you that have no clear name, feelings without obvious source, remember the shocked minerals resting deep in Earth's crust. They do not weaken the planet. They simply prove it endured. In this moment, as you prepare to enter sleep, no meteorite is approaching. No collision needs to happen. There is only the slow continuation of breath of heartbeat of a small inner planet now allowed to rest. And like Earth, after billions of years of upheaval, you too can trust that what remains after everything is life, not the wound. If you wish, let this thought drift away with the breath. You do not need to hold it. It will find its place on its own, just as every ancient trace has found a quiet home within the planet. Part 12. The deep ocean and tectonic scars. Beneath the calm surface of the ocean, where sunlight no longer reaches Earth, continues a very ancient and very patient task, renewing itself. The deep ocean trenches, dark, long, and silent, are not lifeless voids, but places where the planet quietly retrieves, crushes, and rebirths its tired crust. There, tectonic plates slowly slide beneath one another, in the process of subduction, carrying rock, water, minerals, and hundreds of millions of years of geological memory downward. There is no noise, no light, only pressure, heat, and time doing their work. Seen through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, these deep trenches resemble the planet's collective unconscious. They are places where things no longer need to be seen in order to influence the whole system. What happens tens of kilometers beneath the seafloor can, after a long time, shake entire continents. A movement that is small and slow, accumulated over vast spans of time, eventually releases energy as earthquakes or tsunamis, events that leave human beings feeling overwhelmed and powerless. But for Earth, this is not rage. It is adjustment. Ocean trenches therefore hold two faces: on one side recycling, on the other release. One sustains the planet's long-term cycles, while the other manifests as intense moments that force human history to pause and remember. Just as in the human psyche, experiences pushed into deeper layers do not disappear, they wait for conditions that allow them to surface. When inner pressure builds for too long, when unseen material is compressed, it may rise as anxiety, fear, or a powerful emotional event, not to destroy, but to compel the system back toward balance. Earth's tectonic scars, the trenches stretching thousands of kilometers, are traces of repeated processes that are neither rushed nor malicious. They are not formed in an instant, but carved over countless cycles of sliding, compression, melting, and restructuring. A scar is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of survival after disruption. A planet without scars would be a planet without history. Human life follows the same pattern. The deep grooves within the psyche, experiences that have passed but left long-lasting imprints, do not always need to be excavated or erased. Sometimes what is needed is simply to recognize that they exist quietly, doing their work, shaping reflexes, emotions, and the way we stand in the world. Jung emphasized that what remains unconscious returns as fate. But when allowed to exist within the order of the whole, it becomes energy for growth rather than a threat. The deep ocean reminds us of a comforting truth. Not every movement needs to be felt. Earth remains stable even while its interior is constantly changing. And so do you. Right now, as you listen and prepare for sleep, layers of emotion, memory, and thought may be quietly adjusting behind consciousness. You do not need to intervene. You do not need to control. The system within you, like the planet itself, has learned how to regenerate through billions of years of evolution. Let the image of the deep ocean drift slowly through your mind, dark, vast, still, yet never empty. There is movement there, life adapted to depth, ancient currents seeking balance. And as you relax your body and slow your breath, you are allowing the scars within you to rest where they belong, not erased, not retold, simply integrated into the whole of who you are. Sleep like an ocean trench is not a place where everything stops. It is where the deepest processes continue their work so that when you wake, the surface of life may once again be calm. When we think of great earthquakes or ocean-spanning tsunamis, we often imagine sudden violence. But if we listen to Earth long enough, we realize that intensity is only the final moment of a very long, very silent process. Decades or centuries before the ground shakes, tectonic plates have already begun to move. They rub, lock, and store energy in near stillness. No clear signs, no loud warnings. Only pressure quietly increasing in darkness. And when the threshold is crossed, Earth exhales a powerful breath, not from loss of control, but because release has become necessary. At that depth, ocean trenches are like zones of compressed memory for the planet. Ancient layers of rock are drawn down, melted, blended, and after millions of years may rise again as new magma forming seafloor far away. Nothing truly disappears. Everything changes state and position, carrying traces of what once was. Earth does not forget its past. It rewrites it in another language, the language of pressure, heat, and deep time. From a Jungian perspective, this is exactly how the unconscious operates. Experiences not immediately processed do not vanish. They settle, sink, and become part of the psychological foundation. And like the trenches, the unconscious does not seek to harm. It holds energy until consciousness is wide enough, safe enough to receive and integrate it. When inner tremors occur, they are not disasters but turning points of growth. Most of the time, these deep processes unfold without our attention. You do not need to monitor every inner movement, just as you do not need to feel every centimeter of tectonic plate shifting beneath the ocean floor. Surface life continues, a day passes, a breath comes and goes, a quiet night settles in. Meanwhile, at deeper levels, the system works silently to keep the whole from collapsing. Ocean trenches thus teach a gentle lesson. Stability does not mean immobility. Peace is not the absence of movement, but a state in which every movement has its place. When we allow heavy emotions, deep memories, and unnamed thoughts to exist without forcing immediate resolution, we create space for natural reorganization. And perhaps this is the most fitting spirit for sleep. When night falls, you do not need to fully understand everything that happened during the day, nor close every question. You only need to do what Earth has done for billions of years. Trust the long rhythm of life. Trust that some work does not require conscious intervention. Trust that rest does not interrupt the process, it is part of it. Let the image of the ocean trench fade from your mind, not as a frightening abyss, but as a containing space. There, everything is held, processed, transformed slowly and precisely. And as you close your eyes, you are doing something deeply natural, handing the watch over to deeper layers, so that tomorrow may begin lighter, steadier, and calmer. Part 13. Climate, shaped by geology. There is a common, misunderstanding, when people think about climate, that it is only a story of wind, clouds, rain, and sunlight. But if we listen more deeply, if we view the planet through the slow and extended lens of time, we realize that climate is not written only in the sky, it is carved into the Earth itself. What happens beneath the surface in molten magma chambers and silently shifting tectonic plates can ripple outward to shape the atmosphere, oceans, and life for years, even centuries. Large volcanic eruptions offer the clearest example of this deep connection. When a volcano erupts violently, it releases not only lava and ash, but also fine particles called aerosols high into the atmosphere. These particles linger, reflecting sunlight back into space and reducing the heat reaching Earth's surface. The result is a seeming paradox. Fire from within the Earth brings global cooling, not permanently, not absolutely, but as a temporary adjustment, like a deep breath taken by the planet after strain. What is remarkable is that climate does not respond indifferently. The atmosphere is highly sensitive to major geological disruptions. A sufficiently powerful eruption can lower average global temperatures for several years, alter rainfall patterns, affect crops, and even influence human history. Yet Earth does not panic. It does not rush to restore the previous state. Instead, the climate system adjusts, absorbs, and rebalances according to its own rhythm. The traces of these events do not vanish. They are carefully preserved in polar ice, in the growth rings of ancient trees, in quiet layers of sediment beneath lakes and oceans. Each ice layer, each tree ring, each thin band of soil is a wordless journal, recording moments when skies dimmed with ash, summers shortened and sunlight softened for a time. The planet remembers in its own way. Seen through a Jungian lens, a deep parallel emerges between geology and the human psyche. There are eruptions in inner life, major events, intense emotions, sudden crises that can cool the familiar rhythm of our days. After shock, we slow down, withdraw, and experience the world with less heat. Yet, like climate, the psyche is not destroyed by these events. It changes temporarily to protect itself, seeking deeper balance. More importantly, these experiences do not disappear. They are recorded in memory in the body and how we later respond to the world. But this recording is not a burden. It is data, information that allows the system, whether Earth or the human soul, to adapt more wisely in the future. Jung emphasized that the unconscious does not oppose consciousness. It supplements it with depth. Likewise, geology does not sabotage climate. It participates in shaping life's long rhythm. In the slow cadence of night as you listen, you do not need to remember which eruption cooled the planet by how many degrees. What matters more is the quiet reassurance your planet has endured far greater disturbances and continues to regulate, to sustain life. And so do you, with emotional shifts and difficult phases, quietly adjusting in ways deeper and wiser than you may realize. Let this thought drift gently through your mind. Climate, like emotion, does not need absolute control. It needs understanding, space, and trust. When you allow yourself to rest, you are doing what Earth does after every major geological event, pausing to rebalance. And in that pause, in this effort-free moment, sleep can arrive naturally, like night dew settling after a long day, like skies clearing after ash has fallen. You may close your eyes, knowing that deeper systems, both planetary and personal, continue their quiet work, sustaining life with patience and care. Seen from a longer view beyond a single human lifetime, climate has never been fixed. It is like a very long piece of music, with crescendos, silences, and slow movements stretching across centuries. Geology is the deepest instrument in that composition. Not loud, not rushed, but when it plays, the entire system listens. Past volcanic eruptions did not leave only ash and lava. They left subtle adjustments in Earth's thermal balance. Some summers grew gentler, some winters extended longer. Life did not vanish. Instead, it adapted. Plants grew more slowly, animals altered behavior, humans adjusted through migration, storage, and rhythm changes. Climate, shaped by geology, became a patient teacher, teaching not with words, but with lived experience. Earth does not label these changes as mistakes. There is no right or wrong in geological flow, only transformation. Volcanoes erupt not to destroy climate, but to release long-held pressure. The atmosphere responds by dispersing energy, shading light, cooling the surface. A silent dialogue unfolds between Earth's depths and its skies extended enough to avoid shock to life. Jung noted that nature and the human psyche share a deep logic. Living systems self-regulate when energy is compressed too tightly. Repressed emotions eventually surface. Afterward, the system needs time to settle. Climate behaves similarly. After major geological disturbances, Earth enters a cooling phase, not weakening but restoring balance. Polar ice sheets are not just frozen water, they are climate libraries. Each thin layer records a year, a season, an event. Within them are traces of ancient eruptions, old atmospheres, years when Earth breathed more slowly. Tree rings echo this rhythm, wide in wet years, narrow in cold, dry ones. Time does not disappear, it settles and remains. Listening to this at night, you do not need to understand everything. Like climate, the mind does not need constant analysis. Some knowledge is meant to be felt. Knowing that the planet has endured countless upheavals and still sustains life can bring deep safety, the sense that change does not equal collapse. You may let this thought drift like a thin cloud. No need to hold it. Just allow it to soften your thinking. As you lie still and breathe more slowly, you are aligning with the planet's rhythm, the rhythm of long cycles, patient adjustment, unhurried balance. Climate continues to be shaped, whether you are awake or asleep. Volcanoes quietly store pressure. The atmosphere exchanges energy, and in this moment you need do nothing. A larger system is working for you. You may rest. Let Earth continue its long story. And allow yourself in this quiet night to drift gently into sleep like climate, after upheaval slowly returning to its own calm equilibrium. Part 14. Fossil Fuels. Memories of Ancient Swamps. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, everything with depth in time carries memory. Not only do human beings possess an unconscious, Earth too has a kind of geological unconscious, where what once lived, moved, and absorbed sunlight is stored, compressed, and held. Fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas are such memories. They are not merely resources, but fragments of ancient light that have fallen asleep locked within the Earth for tens or hundreds of millions of years. Imagine this: long before humans existed, before birds or flowers, vast forests and sprawling swamps covered the planet. Sunlight fell, absorbed by leaves, transformed into life. That energy did not disappear. When plants died and fell into oxygen-poor waters, they did not fully decompose. Instead, they settled layer upon layer, memory upon memory. Pressure increased, time stretched, heat rose slowly, and over millions of years that ancient sunlight was compressed into coal, oil, and natural gas. Fossil fuels are light that lost its glow, but never its energy. This process was neither common nor accidental. It required very specific conditions: abundant life, low oxygen, rapid sediment coverage, and above all, time. Much life has existed on Earth, but not all became fossil fuel. Only rare moments in planetary history when biology and geology aligned produced such vast energy stores. In this way, fossil fuels resemble selected dreams. Not every dream is remembered, not every memory preserved. Jung noted that what is deeply repressed in the unconscious does not disappear, it changes form. Coal and oil exemplify this. They are the result of prolonged compression not only of matter but of time. When humans extract and burn them, we release the energy of ancient summers of forests long vanished. A small flame in a stove or engine is a brief meeting between present and deep past. What makes fossil fuels special and fragile is that they are layered stories of both biology and geology. Without life, there would be no organic matter. Without geology, no pressure or heat to transform it. Each coal seam, each oil reservoir is a wordless chronicle of how Earth once breathed, once flourished, once slowly transformed. Seen this way, fossil fuels are no longer inert. They carry the imprint of ancient rhythms, rhythms of accumulation, unhurried and patient, millions of years to form, minutes to burn. This imbalance reflects a familiar tension in human psychology between the slow, deep tempo of the unconscious and the rapid consumption of modern consciousness. Jung might suggest that when compressed memories are released too quickly, systems lose balance, not as punishment but as natural response. Listening to this before sleep, you need not think about responsibility or solutions. This is not a moment for analysis or worry. Simply feel a gentle truth: you live on a planet that knows how to store memory. Nothing that once existed is ever entirely lost, whether in stone, atmosphere, or your own body. Like emotions, memories do not vanish when buried. They change form and weight. Coal, oil, and gas remind us that time is never rushed. Earth learned patience long ago, and in this quiet night you do not need to hurry. You do not need to shine. You do not need to generate energy. You only need to rest, like ancient light that rested deep within Earth. Notice your breath now. Each inhalation draws air, shaped by planetary history. Each exhalation releases gently. You do not need to carry Earth's entire story. Just know everything has its time. And now your time is to drift into sleep slowly, safely, and humanly. Look deeper still, and fossil fuels take on a distinctly Jungian symbolism. Memories buried so long we forget their origin. In depth psychology, Jung called this the collective unconscious ancient human experience, persisting beyond awareness. Coal and oil are the collective memory of Earth's life, belonging not to one era, but to the whole planet. When humans discover, extract, and use them, this is not merely technical. It is an encounter between present and deep time. Yet unlike listening to a dream or a deep emotion, modern humans often rush to consume these memories rather than dialogue with them. Jung warned that unconscious material, exploited without understanding, becomes disruptive. On a planetary scale, imbalance arises not as curse or magic, but as natural chain reaction. But tonight, as you listen towards sleep, we need not dwell there. What matters is feeling Earth's immense slowness, so different from human haste. This planet spent millions of years creating compressed energy and continues moving at its own pace, regardless of urgency. At the deepest level, the story of fossil fuels whispers this reminder: lasting accumulation requires time. There are no shortcuts to true formation, no instant depth. This applies to stone climate biology and the human soul. Slowly nurtured emotions endure longer than explosive ones. Gradual change is steadier than sudden turns. As you lie still in darkness, notice the support beneath your body. Just as sediment layers support ancient forests' memory, your bed supports a tired body. You need do nothing more. You need not be productive. Your rest now holds value equal to geological accumulation. It is not wasted, only not yet used. And perhaps this is the gentlest point of all: Earth does not require you to understand it. You need not remember terms or processes. Like emotion, you need not analyze in order to rest. Simply allow yourself to be with something larger, slower, and safer than everyday thought. Fossil fuels are ancient light that slept a very long time. And tonight, you are preparing for a short but necessary sleep. Like Earth, you have the right to rest without reason. Let your eyelids grow heavy, let your breath slow, and let time do its quiet work. Part 15. Ancient Rocks, Deep Time, and Atomic Clocks. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, time is not merely numbers passing across the face of a clock. It is an invisible depth in which memory, experience, and being gradually settle. When we speak of ancient rocks, deep time, and atomic clocks, we are not speaking only of geology. We are touching a metaphor, closely aligned with depth psychology. Everything that truly matters requires a very long time to become itself. There are rocks on Earth, older than the oceans, that now cover the planet. Before waves existed, before a stable atmosphere formed, before complex life emerged, the earliest crystals were already taking shape quietly in a still young world. They do not witness time passing, as humans do. They are time. Every crystal layer, every atomic structure, is an indelible trace of what has occurred. Among these zircon, a mineral sometimes no larger than a grain of sand, is one of the most ancient witnesses. Within zircon, uranium atoms slowly decay into lead, at a rate so stable it approaches perfection. Without memory, without awareness, the mineral still remembers the moment of its birth. Time is written not in words, but in the silent transformation of atoms. If Jung were alive to see this, he might smile. For in his psychology, the unconscious operates in much the same way. It does not tell stories through logic, but preserves experience through deep, enduring structures that outlast consciousness. Like zircon, the unconscious is never hurried. It waits, accumulates, and reveals itself only when conditions are ready. The geological idea of deep time therefore carries a quiet beauty. It is not the time of schedules, deadlines, or urgency. It is the time of formation, the permission for something to slowly become solid. Mountains need tens of millions of years to rise. Minerals need billions of years to stabilize their structure. And the human soul, too, needs great stretches of time to integrate, experience, heal wounds, and discover meaning. In modern life, we often live as if everything must yield immediate results. But when we listen to the story of ancient rock, we are reminded what endures is never rushed. The most lasting things are built in silence, under pressure and in darkness. No one witnesses zircon forming. No one sees the moment atoms begin to count time. Yet, it is precisely this invisibility that gives it absolute reliability. When scientists use atomic clocks to determine the age of rock, they are not forcing time to move faster. They are learning how to listen to matter's natural rhythm. This too is a gentle lesson for us. Instead of pushing ourselves to change, to understand everything to be complete, sometimes we only need to remain still and allow time to do its work. In the quiet space before sleep, imagine yourself lying on a planet that has undergone more than 4 billion years of transformation. Today's worries, no matter how large they feel, are only a tiny moment within that vast flow. This does not make your sorrow meaningless. Rather, it places you in a safer context where you do not have to carry everything right now. Ancient rocks do not worry about tomorrow. Minerals do not fear being not good enough. They exist, and that existence itself is proof of value. Jung said that the process of becoming oneself, individuation, lasts a lifetime. And perhaps when we look at Earth's deep time, we can gently accept that wherever you are on that journey is entirely okay. So as your breath slows and your body begins to soften, allow yourself to fall into the same rhythm as rock, mineral, and deep time. You do not need to remember numbers or understand atomic decay. Simply feel that even in stillness and silence, time is holding you. And in this moment, just as ancient rock once did, you need to do only one simple thing: rest, and let time continue telling its story. If we listen more closely, Earth's deep time does not feel foreign to the time within us. Jung believed that within the collective unconscious, humanity carries memories of the very ancient, not as clear images, but as a familiar feeling, a background rhythm. Perhaps this is why standing before mountains, or ancient stones, or contemplating billions of years brings not only awe, but also calm, as if something enduring were quietly saying, "Everything will find its form." Ancient rocks do not rush to tell their story. They remain enduring pressure, heat, and collision, changing only when conditions are truly ripe. In depth psychology, this is how the unconscious works. Experiences not yet understood do not vanish. They settle like sediment, waiting for the right moment to be integrated into consciousness. Atomic clocks, with their near-perfect precision, reveal a gentle paradox. The more accurately we can measure time, the more we realize we do not need to control it. Time is not an enemy to conquer, but a current to trust. Jung did not believe in forced change. He believed in process, in allowing the psyche to ripen at its own pace. When people are tired, they often feel they are falling behind. But in the context of deep time, another truth appears in truly important processes. There is no ahead or behind. Some things can happen only after long years of quiet. Some insights emerge only when we are patient with ourselves. Imagine yourself as a small mineral deep within the earth. You do not know the future. You have no goals to achieve. You simply respond to pressure, heat, and environment little by little. And after a very long time, you become part of rock, of mountain of planetary history. Not because you tried, but because you stayed. In the moments before sleep, we are invited to do the same. No more thinking, no more analyzing. Simply stay with the breath, with the weight of the body, with the bed supporting you. Just as Earth has supported ancient rock for billions of years, something is supporting you right now, whether or not you understand what it is. Deep time teaches a gentle lesson. The most enduring things unfold in silence. And perhaps right now, as your eyelids grow heavy, your mind is doing what rocks, minerals, and atoms have always done. Settling, stabilizing, and preparing for a new cycle. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to become someone else. Just allow time outside and within to continue its quiet work. And in that stillness, sleep will arrive light as a new layer of sediment, soft as a breath of the ancient earth. Part 16. The atmosphere, oxygen, and life beneath the prude. Familiar sky we breathe every day. Earth's atmosphere carries a story so long that the human mind can scarcely grasp it. Air is not a static backdrop for life, but a living system that has changed, struggled, adapted, and restructured itself over billions of years. Seen through the eyes of Carl Gustav Jung, the atmosphere is not only a material layer surrounding the planet, but a powerful symbol of the relationship between unconscious and conscious, between invisible forces and the tangible life of human beings. In the beginning, Earth did not possess the gentle atmosphere we know today. There was no blue sky, no easy breath. The primordial atmosphere arose mainly from volcanic activity, water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, all rising from the depths like the hurried breaths of a young planet. It was a chaotic era, where life, if it existed at all, survived only at the fragile margins. The air did not nurture, it tested. It resembled the early psychological state of a human being before emotions are differentiated, raw, powerful, and difficult to regulate. Then something remarkable occurred. Life in its simplest form emerged and began to change the very environment that gave rise to it. Ancient microorganisms, especially cyanobacteria, started photosynthesizing and releasing oxygen, a substance we now see as essential, but which was once deadly. Oxygen reacted violently with other compounds, causing mass extinctions of organisms unable to adapt. Science calls this the Great Oxygenation Event. Through a Jungian lens, it becomes a deeply symbolic moment. The new never arrives without shaking the old. Oxygen was once poison. Told slowly, this fact carries a strange comfort. It reminds us that many things that once harmed us, once disrupted familiar order, later became foundations for richer life. The same is true in the human psyche. Some emotions and experiences initially feel like toxic oxygen, too intense, too sharp, too uncomfortable. Yet when the inner system learns to adapt and integrate them, those very elements open new, deeper layers of living. The atmosphere did not change through biology alone, but through geology as well. Volcanoes continued releasing gases. Rocks weathered. Oceans absorbed and released air. Everything exchanged continuously, with no final fixed state. The atmosphere is the result of an ongoing dialogue between rock, water, life, and sunlight. So too is the human mind, no unchanging essence, but a product of countless dialogues between body, memory, environment, and time. When oxygen reached sufficient levels, complex life became possible. Aerobic respiration allowed organisms to generate more energy, build larger bodies, develop intricate nervous systems. In other words, every breath you take today is the outcome of billions of years of experimentation, failure, and reorganization. Jung said that human consciousness is a very late achievement in natural history. That does not make it lesser. It makes each conscious moment more precious. Pause now and notice your breath. Do not change it. Simply feel the air entering and leaving. That breath carries traces of ancient volcanoes, the first microbes, primeval forests, and deep oceans. It is history compressed into a private moment. When you breathe, Earth breathes with you, not metaphorically but materially, biologically, through deep time. In Jung's view, the unconscious is not something to fear but a psychological atmosphere. It surrounds consciousness, nourishes it, and can overwhelm it if not regulated. Earth's atmosphere passed through extreme imbalances, yet those phases opened the path to greater diversity of life. The human psyche too may pass through confusion, pain, or instability, not as failure but as signs of a new structure forming. Breathing is an unconscious act we rarely notice, yet it keeps us alive. As sleep approaches, you need not do anything with the breath. Simply let it happen as it has throughout your life and throughout the history of life on Earth. There is an ancient safety in releasing control and trusting processes shaped by deep time. Today's air is gentler than in many past eras, yet it continues to change. The atmosphere is not a finished achievement, but an ongoing process. This reminds us that life and you do not need to be complete in order to rest. You are allowed to pause, even when things remain unfinished. As you lie down and close your eyes, letting breath guide you, remember that you are part of something far larger than today's concerns. The air you inhale does not demand worthiness. It is simply there. And just as the atmosphere learned to become gentler with life, you can learn to be gentler with yourself. Tonight there is no need for further thought, no need for analysis. Just breathe and let Earth's long history lull you into sleep. If we listen even more deeply, the atmosphere reveals itself as a kind of collective memory of the planet. Each layer carries traces of different eras, when Earth was molten, when oceans formed, when life first learned to turn light into nourishment. These transformations left marks in rock, ice, and sediment, just as emotions leave traces in the human body and unconscious. Jung believed that humans carry within them the entire evolutionary history of the psyche. Similarly, each breath you take is not only for this moment, but the result of countless unconscious planetary decisions across deep time. Today's air is a delicate compromise between volcanoes and forests, ancient microbes and modern oceans, stable enough for life, flexible enough to change. This offers gentle reassurance. No state is permanent, not even uncomfortable ones. Just as the atmosphere, once harsh, gradually became life-friendly, the human nervous system can relearn safety. Anxiety, tension, and disorder are not signs of being wrong, but signs of a system adapting to something new. As night falls, bodily activity slows. Breathing deepens. The brain shifts from vigilance to repair. This is not weakness, but ancient biological intelligence knowing when to act and when to release. The atmosphere behaves similarly most of the time. It simply envelops, protects, and softens extreme differences between day and night, equator and pole. Notice that you do not need to try to breathe correctly. The body knows how far better than conscious thought. Jung called this the wisdom of the unconscious, a wordless but precise intelligence. When you allow yourself to rest, you place trust in that wisdom, just as life once trusted Earth's changing atmosphere. Air, oxygen, and life are not separate, they co-evolved. Without oxygen, complex life could not exist. Without life, oxygen could not accumulate. This mirrors a deep psychological truth: we do not exist independently of our inner and outer environments. Emotion, thought, body, and circumstance together shape experience. As you lie still in the dark, everything seems quiet. Yet like Earth, small movements continue within you cells, repairing memories, reorganizing emotions, softening. Nothing needs to be rushed. Nothing needs solving now. This planet has survived far greater upheavals, and you are part of it. Let your breath continue its ancient rhythm. Let air do its work, and let sleep arrive as a natural resting phase in the very long story of life. Part 17. Tectonic boundaries. The stitches of the resim, planet from faraway Earth, appears whole, round, and calm. But as we draw closer, as we listen more deeply, we discover that its surface is assembled from countless pieces joined by invisible boundaries. These tectonic boundaries are not fractures of failure, but quiet stitches, places where the planet continually adjusts, repairs, and restructures itself. There, tectonic plates meet separate, slide past one another, or collide slowly in rhythms lasting millions of years. Nothing moves in haste. Each centimeter of yearly motion results from immense pressure accumulated deep within Earth over long spans of time. The planet does not erupt emotionally. It is patient, enduring, loyal to deep time. This mirrors the unconscious in humans, where meaningful change is rarely sudden, but prepared long before we notice it. Carl Jung observed that the most tense points in the human psyche are often where the greatest transformation can occur. In the same way, tectonic boundaries are where Earth's energy concentrates. Here, earthquakes occur, volcanoes erupt, and valuable minerals form. Life, danger, and resources coexist in tight spaces, as if Earth were reminding us that creation and destruction are not opposites, but aspects of one process. At boundaries where plates pull apart, magma rises, cools, and forms new crust. The planet expands like a body healing by regenerating tissue. Where plates collide, crust compresses and lifts into mountains, thickening and roughening the surface. And where plates slide past one another, nothing seems to be created or destroyed, only tension accumulates waiting for release. These movements are not chaotic. They follow deep laws of physics, thermodynamics, and time. Earth stitches itself with a logic the conscious mind may not grasp, but the unconscious can sense. Just as the body heals wounds while the mind sleeps, the planet reshapes itself without our witnessing. From a depth psychology perspective, tectonic boundaries symbolize inner boundaries. They are where old beliefs meet new experiences, where the ego must adjust to avoid fracture. Not all tension is harmful. Some tension is necessary to create new form, just as pressure creates diamonds deep underground. Minerals often concentrate near boundaries because pressure, heat, and movement reorganize matter in rare ways. Symbolically, this suggests that what is most valuable does not always arise in the safest places, but where movement, friction, and adaptation occur. Yet extracting such value requires time, understanding, and patience. At night, as you lie still and your body softens, Earth continues its slow movements. Massive plates drift imperceptibly. Boundaries quietly hold pressure, releasing energy when needed. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing stands completely still. This can offer gentle comfort. Even while you rest, the world continues to function. You do not need to strain to keep everything stable. Just as Earth has survived and adjusted for billions of years, your nervous system knows how to regain balance when allowed to rest. Let the stitches within you loosen tonight. Let tension be held safely in the silence of sleep. And remember, the deepest changes happen very slowly, very softly, and often begin when effort ends. If we listen even more deeply, we realize tectonic boundaries are not just places where Earth endures pressure, but where it learns to live with it. There is no attempt to eliminate tension completely, only to distribute, channel, and transform it. This mirrors psychological maturity, not erasing conflict, but creating enough space so conflict does not shatter the whole. Along boundaries stretching thousands of kilometers, no major earthquake may occur for centuries. Yet pressure still accumulates layer by thin layer. Earth does not forget what is happening within. It waits for the right moment to release. Jung described this as the unconscious, working in the background where compressed contents wait until safe integration is possible. Transform boundaries where plates slide past without creating or destroying crust possess a subtle beauty. They represent motion without immediate outcome. No new mountains rise, no magma flows, only friction. Yet this friction stabilizes the system. In inner life, there are times when we too simply slide, not advancing clearly, not collapsing, merely maintaining fragile balance. And that alone is an achievement. Tectonic maps show boundaries forming a global network like a nervous system encircling the body. Where signals are strong, responses occur. Where energy builds, movement follows. Earth has no single control center yet. It functions as a unified whole, just as the human mind does not need an absolute commander to find equilibrium. Before sleep, this realization may bring natural relief. You do not need to understand every inner conflict tonight. You do not need to fix yourself. Just as Earth does not rush to perfect its form, you are allowed to grow at your own pace, slowly, without pressure. Somewhere deep within you, in the nervous system, the body, the wordless layers of memory, your own boundaries are quietly working. They keep you from falling apart. They allow change without loss of self. And as you sleep like Earth turning in cosmic darkness, these processes continue, silent, precise, sufficient. You do not need to do anything. Earth is stitching itself together, and so is your body and mind. Part 18. Rocks, minerals, and memory written in crystals. If there is one thing on Earth that understands the meaning of waiting more deeply than anything else, it is not human beings, it is rock. Rock does not hurry. Rock does not resist. Rock lies there silently, allowing time to pass through it layer by layer, moment by moment, stretching across millions of years. And in that absolute silence, rock remembers. Each type of rock carries a different story, not told in words, but engraved through temperature, pressure, movement, and patience. Igneous rock is born of fire, from moments when matter is melted, losing its former shape in order to become something else. As magma slowly cools, crystals begin to form, bit by bit, as if the universe were whispering to itself. The speed of cooling determines the size of the crystals, much like how an intense experience or a long, gradual process leaves different marks on the human psyche. Sedimentary rock follows another rhythm altogether. There is no fire, no explosion, only accumulation. Grain by grain, tiny fragments settle at the bottom of ancient seas, vanished lakes or deserts that were once green. One layer rests upon another, growing heavier, compressing, and over time becoming stone. There is no decisive moment, only repetition. Like human memory, which is not always shaped by great events, but more often by ordinary days, repeated again and again, quietly forming who we become. Then there are metamorphic rocks, stones that were once igneous or sedimentary but were not allowed to remain as they were. Buried, deep pressed, heated, not enough to melt completely, but enough to alter their internal structure. Crystals rearrange. Old bonds break. A new form appears not by choice, but by circumstance. In Jung's psychology, this closely resembles inner transformation, when a person can no longer live as before, yet is not fully ready to become something entirely new. Crystals within rock are perfect memories. They preserve precisely the temperature, pressure, and chemical environment of their formation, no more, no less. Nothing is distorted, nothing forgotten. Humans remember through stories, emotions, and images. Rock remembers through structure. And sometimes that absolute honesty makes stone the planet's most faithful, silent historian. When geologists examine a tiny zircon crystal, they can read Earth's history from over 4 billion years ago. Within a mineral smaller than the head of a pin lies the memory of the first oceans, the earliest atmosphere, a planet learning how to become habitable. This reminds us that size does not determine meaning. The smallest things sometimes carry the longest stories. Jung said that the unconscious forgets nothing. It only stores experience without words. Rock does the same. Rock does not speak, but it records. Rock does not explain, but it remains. And in that presence, there is a deep sense of safety. Not everything must be spoken to have value. Not every experience needs to be understood immediately. When you touch a stone, you are touching time, not calendar time or clock time, but deep time, where millions of years are condensed into a quiet object. This can soften the urgency inside you. Today's worries, placed beside the rhythm of stone, grow lighter, not because they do not matter, but because you realize you do not need to resolve everything right now. Rock teaches a gentle lesson that change is not always loud, that memory is not always painful, and that endurance, given enough time, can become structure, not merely a wound. As you lie here, preparing to drift into sleep, imagine that beneath you, deep within the earth crystals, continue their silent recording. No hurry, no demand, simply being. A reminder that you too need do nothing more tonight. You are already enough. Time is doing its work, just like rock. And if we listen more carefully, not with ears but with a very soft attention, we begin to notice that rock not only stores Earth's memory, but reflects how human beings carry memory within themselves. Some memories are molten, like magma, born in intense moments when emotion exceeds our capacity, forcing the psyche to reorganize. Others settle like sediment, tiny, ordinary days layered over time, forming the foundation of character, belief, and safety. And then there are metamorphic memories, not because they were wrong, but because circumstances changed. Life pressure, loss, transitions force old memories to exist in new forms. Like metamorphic stone, these memories no longer look as they once did, but they are stronger, denser, and often more enduring. Jung called this individuation the process by which a person does not erase the past, but allows it to restructure them from within. Crystals do not choose where they form. They appear where conditions allow no more, no less. This closely mirrors how emotions arise in humans. An emotion does not appear because we wish it to, but because nervous system memory and circumstance converge. When we stop judging our emotions, we begin to see them as inner crystals, each carrying information, each having reason to exist. Some stones bear fractures, yet those fractures allow other minerals to enter, creating beauty that cannot be replicated. In nature, cracks are not errors. They are conditions for richness. The same is true for people. Psychological cracks, when held safely, can become places where wisdom and compassion grow. When you think of rock this way, it no longer feels lifeless. It becomes a silent witness to existence, taking no side, offering no advice, simply being there. And sometimes that non-demanding presence is exactly what the human nervous system needs in order to rest. At night, while everything grows quiet, Earth continues its work. Crystals stabilize, pressure balances, time moves on without supervision. This is a gentle reminder. You do not need to stay awake for things to continue. You can sleep. The world will keep turning. Your body will too. And like rock, you do not need to change right now. You do not need to understand everything. You do not need to heal in a single night. Just lie there, allowing time to pass through you safely. Sleep in this moment is not the end of consciousness, but the moment you allow deeper processes to take over. Just as stone is formed in darkness, many of the most important things in you are happening when you are no longer trying. Let Earth remember what it needs to remember. Let stone remain silent. And let yourself rest. Part 19. Glaciers, rivers, wind, and the quiet art of shaping. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, the natural world is not merely a physical backdrop for life, but a symbolic mirror reflecting the deepest movements of the human soul. And among all natural forces, glaciers, rivers, and wind may be the quietest artists, never loud, never dramatic, yet patient, precise, and irreversible. They do not create through moments, but through time, not through sudden force, but through persistent repetition. And here they offer a gentle lesson for a tired mind before sleep. Ice does not rush, rivers do not argue, wind does not need to be seen, yet all leave marks that cannot be erased. A deep valley is not carved by a single flood, but by millions of years of water flowing in the same direction. A rounded cliff is not shaped by one impact, but by wind, repeating the same motion again and again. A magnificent fjord is not born from a heroic instant, but from glaciers sliding back and forth so slowly that no human can witness it in a lifetime. Nature reminds us that what endures most often happens most quietly. Jung emphasized that the human psyche follows similar laws. Profound change rarely comes from dramatic decisions. It comes from small adjustments repeated over time, from emotions felt fully, from experiences lived again and again. Like water shaping stone, emotions, when allowed to exist without force or repression, gradually shape personality, belief, and worldview, not through violence, but through presence. Glaciers are especially powerful symbols. They are both destructive and creative. They crush everything in their path, yet create some of the most beautiful landscapes on Earth. This reflects a difficult but necessary truth of inner life. There are cold, heavy phases that feel frozen, lifeless. But these phases may be deeply restructuring. Periods of stillness, disorientation, or emotional freeze are not always failures. Sometimes they are preparation for a new form of self. Rivers symbolize psychological flow. No river runs straight forever. They curve, change direction, sometimes get blocked, yet eventually find the path of least resistance. Jung called this the psyche's self-regulating principle. When we stop forcing ourselves to be right, fast, or perfect, the mind finds balance on its own. Like a river, it chooses the path it can actually travel, not the ideal one. Wind is different. It leaves no fixed shape, yet activates movement everywhere it passes. In Jungian psychology, wind resembles unconscious influences, faint memories, passing dreams, unnamed sensations. We do not see the wind, but we see leaves tremble. We cannot grasp the unconscious, but we see our behavior, emotions, and dreams shift. Wind reminds us that not everything important needs a name. Weathering the gradual wearing of stone by rain, sun, wind, and temperature is a perfect image for how time softens human beings. The sharp edges of youth, rigid beliefs, and a hardened ego are slowly rounded, not because we grow weaker, but because we adapt. Mature beauty lies not in sharpness, but in depth and harmony. Seen this way, nature is no longer out there. It is happening within you. Every small habit repeated daily is a drop of water. Every familiar thought is a breeze. Every emotion repressed or accepted is a cycle of freezing and thawing. And over time, your whole being is being shaped, even when you are not paying attention. This matters especially as sleep approaches. Sleep is the moment we return authority to slow processes. We stop controlling, intervening, fixing. We allow water to keep flowing, wind to keep blowing, ice to keep moving, both in body and mind. Jung believed that only in such states of release does the unconscious have space to heal and reorganize. So if today you feel unchanged, unimproved, as if you have gone nowhere, remember rivers, wind, and ice. They do not measure worth by speed. They measure it by the traces left over time. And perhaps right now, as you lie still, eyes closed, making no further effort, something very deep is quietly unfolding. You do not need to be beautiful yet. You do not need to understand yet. You do not need to be different yet. Beauty, as nature teaches, is born of time, and time is on your side. If we listen more closely, we realize that glaciers, rivers, and wind are whispering another way of being, a way without haste. In a modern world obsessed with efficiency, results, and speed, nature continues at a radically different pace, the pace of thousands, millions of years. Jung believed that one root of modern psychological distress lies in consciousness trying to live faster than the unconscious. We want to change now, understand now, heal now, while our deepest layers need time to absorb. Glaciers do not ask whether humans are patient. They simply move very slowly, but without stopping. That slowness creates quiet lakes, deep valleys, gentle curves no hand could design. Inner life has similar processes. Some sorrows cannot be solved. Some memories cannot be processed. They can only be lived through long enough, safely enough, without pressure, until they change form on their own. Rivers teach flexibility. No river forces itself through the hardest rock. It bends loops, sometimes seeming lost. Yet those curves create fertile plains where life can settle. Jung called this individuation the path by which each person finds their own shape, not by marching straight ahead, but by listening to resistance. When you release the need to be right, you begin to move truly. Wind reminds us of unseen influence. Many human motivations arise not from clear thought, but from wordless layers: familiarity and strangeness, safety and threat, attraction and avoidance. Wind does not ask whether stone is ready to erode. It blows softly, steadily, and stone changes. So do we. Small moments, passing words, glances, sleepless nights quietly shaping us without announcement. Weathering is the process of softening. A young mountain is sharp and steep. An old mountain is rounder, lower, yet stable and embracing. Jung believed maturity is not becoming stronger, but being able to endure more without armor. Seasoned people are less sharp, not weaker, but deeper. That depth comes from repeated contact with reality, slowly digested over time. Seen this way, you may begin to forgive your own unfinished state. Perhaps you are in a landscape being sculpted. Perhaps you are being worn, stretched, reshaped. That does not mean you are breaking. It may mean you are becoming. And when night falls, these slow processes take full authority. In sleep, you do not need to try to heal. The body knows how to adjust. The brain knows how to reorganize. The unconscious knows how to continue unfinished work. Just as rivers flow at night, wind moves through mountains, glaciers slide in darkness. Jung said the unconscious never sleeps. It only needs consciousness to be quiet. So right now you need not understand anything more. No need to remember. No need to grasp. Simply allow yourself to lie still like a landscape tended by time. Everything necessary is already happening, very slowly, very deeply, very precisely. Beauty does not need to be created. It is being shaped. And tonight, as you close your eyes, nature, both outside and within, continues its work. Part 20. Soil life. And the ecosystem beneath our feet, where it may seem like nothing more than a silent surface we walk across each day. Soil is alive. Not loudly, not dramatically, not asking to be seen. Soil does not present itself like mountains or oceans. Yet in its humility, it holds the deepest role of all, the place where life begins, connects, dissolves, and is reborn. Seen through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, soil is not merely matter, but a primordial symbol of the unconscious, of the great mother, of the place where everything is held before it takes form. Within a single handful of soil, billions of microscopic organisms are constantly at work. They breathe, exchange, die, and are born, forming a living network so intricate that modern science has yet to fully name it. Soil is not dirt, but a complex ecosystem in which bacteria, fungi, plant roots and minerals together maintain the planet's fragile balance. Without these tiny beings, plants could not absorb nutrients, the atmosphere would lose stability, and life as we know it would not exist. Jung once said that the most important parts of the human psyche lie in what consciousness does not notice. Soil works the same way. It labors in darkness. It breaks down death into the conditions for new life. It turns fallen leaves into humus remains, into nourishment chaos, into order. In the human mind, the unconscious plays a similar role, receiving experiences not yet understood, emotions not yet named, wounds not yet processed, and quietly transforming them over time. Soil microorganisms govern nutrient cycles, influence atmospheric carbon, affect global temperature, and contribute to climate stability. These invisible beings, though small, hold power no large organism can replace. This echoes a deep Jungian truth: the smallest and most overlooked elements of inner life often exert the greatest influence. A vague belief, a childhood memory, a familiar feeling with no clear origin, any of these can shape an entire life. Soil does not hurry. It takes time to form hundreds, even thousands of years for just a few centimeters of fertile earth. But once it exists, it sustains forests and civilizations alike. In a modern world, driven by speed, efficiency, and immediate results, soil reminds us that sustainable life does not arise from haste, but from slow accumulation. Jung called this the ripening of the soul, something that cannot be forced, only accompanied. A handful of soil contains an entire world, not only biologically but symbolically. It holds the memory of ancient forests, long-dead organisms, old climates, and past seasons. Likewise, within every person lives an invisible history, ancestors, culture, fears, dreams, and untold stories. We do not begin from nothing. We are formed from layers, just like soil. When we touch the ground, or simply imagine it, on this quiet night, the nervous system responds. Many studies show that contact with earth and nature can reduce stress, calm anxiety, and return the body to a primal sense of safety. Jung believed modern suffering stems in part from losing symbolic connection with nature, with archetypal images that nourish the soul. Soil is one such image, the image of unconditional support. Perhaps this is why, when we are tired, we want to lie down. When grief runs deep, we want to touch ground. When we are exhausted, healing does not come from more stimulation, but from being returned to a foundation. Soil does not ask who you are, what you have done, or whether you deserve rest. It is simply there, always there, receiving everything. Tonight, as you listen to these words before sleep, you do not need to understand anything further. Just know that beneath you, physically and psychologically, there is a foundation holding you. A silent ecosystem is working. A deeper part of you is adjusting itself. Just as soil continues to nourish life in darkness, you do not need to try in order to rest. You only need to be placed down. And like soil, the deepest part of you continues its work slowly, steadily alive. If we listen even more deeply, soil teaches a lesson rarely spoken of the capacity to contain. Soil does not resist being stepped on, does not resent being dug up, does not refuse even the most decayed matter. And precisely because it can contain, it can transform. In Jungian psychology, this is the quality of the vessel, the soul's ability to hold experience without rushing to judge or discard it. Only when something is held long enough in safe darkness can it truly change. Much of modern stress arises because we no longer give ourselves space to incubate. We want emotions gone quickly, sorrow resolved immediately, exhaustion fixed at once. But soil does not work this way. It allows everything to remain for its proper time. A fallen leaf does not become humus overnight. It requires moisture, microbes, temperature, and above all, unhurried time. The human mind works the same way. True healing comes not from forced positivity, but from being allowed to rest within safety. Soil organisms do not work alone. They exist in complex communities, each performing a tiny role, yet together creating conditions for life. This reflects a deep inner truth. You do not need one grand solution to change everything. Sometimes it is a small habit, repeated a moment of slower breathing, a night of deeper sleep. These micro-changes repeated rebuild the entire inner ecosystem. Soil also holds memory, not through images or words, but through structure, layers, and chemistry. Forest fires, droughts, floods, all leave traces in the ground. Jung called this collective memory what is transmitted not through conscious recall, but through the structure of existence itself. Within each person are similar traces, reactions with no clear origin, feelings that arise without reason, nameless fears. They are not wrong. They are deep memories waiting to be met gently. When we allow ourselves to see soil as a living being, we learn to see ourselves not as machines needing repair, but as ecosystems needing care. Some days are balanced, some are disrupted. But life does not vanish because of one harsh season. It retreats deeper, waiting for better conditions. Rest, too, is a survival strategy, not a weakness. So before sleep, you may allow yourself to imagine your body as quiet ground after a long day. Thoughts are fallen leaves. Emotions are seeds. What you do not yet understand are roots searching in darkness. You do not need to do anything more. The process began long ago. Soil never rushes, and you do not need to rush anymore. Right now, as eyelids grow heavier and breath slows slightly, allow the deepest part of you to work as soil does, quietly, steadily, with living wisdom. Part 21. Catastrophe Renewal and the Planet's Long, RHY Them. In Earth's long history, catastrophe is not an exception. It does not appear as a rare accident, but as part of a deep, slow, vast rhythm the planet has carried since its beginning. When we look at ancient rock layers, buried fossils, sudden gaps in the biological record, we encounter a quiet truth. Life has been interrupted many times and has also begun again many times. Mass extinction sounds severe, but in the language of geology, it is not an ending. It is like a deep pause in a very long piece of music. There were moments when most life vanished, in what relative to the planet's age was a brief time. Forests turned to stone. Oceans changed color. Skies filled with dust. Yet Earth did not panic. It did not try to return to what was. It moved forward along a different path. Jung wrote that in the human psyche, crisis does not only destroy, it restructures. When an old structure can no longer contain what it holds, it collapses, forcing psychic energy to find a new form. Earth operates by the same principle. After each catastrophe, what survives is not always the strongest, but what best fits the new rhythm. Geology records catastrophe not through stories, but through traces, a thin layer of iridium between rock strata, shocked minerals, the sudden disappearance of entire groups of organisms at the same moment in time. These traces carry no emotion, no judgment. They simply state, "This happened," and above that memory layer life sprouts again. What is striking is that recovery is never a return. After every extinction, the world becomes different. Former dominants vanish, making space for new forms of life. At first, small, quiet, nearly invisible. As in the human soul, after a major upheaval, the old self is no longer intact, yet from the fragments, a new way of being slowly takes shape. Jung called this process individuation, the becoming of oneself, not by staying the same, but by moving through darkness. Earth matures this way. It carries the memory of deep loss without being trapped in it. Each recovery cycle is another experiment in living, balancing, adapting. Seen through this long rhythm, the idea of catastrophe changes tone. It is no longer only destruction, but a necessary interruption that allows an overloaded system to renew itself. In human life, we fear breakdowns, loss moments when everything is no longer as before. Earth does not fear them. It has lived through too many to fear another. There is deep comfort here. Earth does not stop. Even when its surface is torn open, when life withdraws into the smallest refuges, deep energies continue. Tectonic plates drift. The metallic core turns. Time flows unpaused by pain. Listening to this story before sleep, a gentle parallel may emerge. Personal crises, loss, exhaustion, collapse, are not always failures. Sometimes they signal that an old structure has completed its role, that it is time for a different rhythm of life, to form slower, deeper, more truthful. There is no need to rush recovery. Earth never rushes. After major catastrophes, it takes millions of years for diversity to return. Yet it does return. In darkness, in silence. In what seems insignificant, a bacterium adapts. A new form tests another way of living. A new balance slowly appears. Before sleep, you may allow this to be not a lesson, but a feeling that even if today you are tired, confused, or in a personal extinction period, the long rhythm is still holding you. Nothing needs to be resolved right now. Earth continues to breathe. Life continues to experiment. and you too may rest in the trust that after every deep pause a new form of life can emerge. Let this thought drift gently by. No need to keep it. No need to understand it fully. As Earth has done for billions of years, simply continue in your own rhythm. Earth does not stop. If we listen even more closely, we realize that Earth does not merely recover from catastrophe, it remembers it in a way very different from human memory. Geological memory holds no images, no words, no surface emotion. It is stored in pressure, crystal structure, subtle chemical changes. These memories do not haunt or return as panic. They settle, becoming the foundation for what follows. Jung distinguished between memories trapped in the personal unconscious and those integrated into the collective unconscious. Once integrated memory no longer causes direct pain. It becomes background wisdom, quietly shaping reactions, choices, and rhythms of life. Earth does the same. Ancient catastrophes do not make the planet fear change. They become deep knowledge that change is inevitable and adaptation is the only path. This matters especially in an age where catastrophe is seen as abnormal, a deviation to be fixed as quickly as possible. In Earth's long view, catastrophe is not the opposite of order. It is a form of order when an old order can no longer sustain life. There were times when life shrank to its bare minimum, existing only in deep, hot, dark places. Organisms lived around hydrothermal vents without sunlight, without familiar ecosystems. And from those dark zones, life spread again, slowly, steadily. This image offers great comfort before sleep. It reminds us that even when consciousness is exhausted, when familiar life structures falter, deeper layers continue working. Like sleep itself, when control fades, the body and brain enter their most powerful regeneration. Jung believed the unconscious does not oppose consciousness. It cares for it when consciousness lets go. Earth has such an unconscious, too deep processes we cannot see or hear yet, which always operate. When the surface is wounded, these depths prevent disintegration. So when hearing of geological catastrophe in a slow, safe space, before sleep there is no need for fear. Let it become a whisper. Every living system can move through breakdown if it is allowed to change shape. No recovery is identical to what came before. No balance is permanent, and no loss is entirely meaningless. Earth does not cling to the past. It carries memory and continues. You can do the same, not through effort, but through rest. As you lie down now, let the image of an ancient planet, broken and reborn, many times drift through your mind like a slow current. No lesson to extract, no conclusion to reach, only the feeling that you are being held within a rhythm far longer and wider than today's worries. Earth continues. Life continues to experiment, and your sleep too is part of that process. You do not need to do anything more. Simply let that long rhythm carry you forward, very gently. Part 22. Conclusion: The Breathing Planet. As you lie still, here in this very private moment of the night, Earth continues to move. Not loudly, not hurriedly, without needing human witness. This planet learned how to exist over billions of years without asking for attention. It moves in silence, like the deep breath of a vast living being, steady, enduring, and never forgetting its rhythm. There is deep comfort in realizing this. When we rest, the world does not collapse. Mountains do not stop standing because we are asleep. Rivers do not need to be watched in order to keep flowing. Oceans do not wait for permission to rise and fall with the tides. Earth has never depended on our alertness to do its work. Carl Jung once said that the conscious ego often carries the illusion that it must control everything for life to continue. But the unconscious, like nature itself, continually proves the opposite. Most of life functions best when consciousness steps back. When we stop intervening, stop monitoring, stop worrying, deeper layers begin to work. The planet is breathing, not in a romantic sense, but in a very real one. Rock warms and cools. Water evaporates and falls again. Air moves, carrying heat and cold, the scent of salt, the scent of soil. These movements have no final goal. They are simply life continuing. And that continuation itself creates a profound sense of safety, the sense that something vast is holding everything together, including you. From this perspective, human beings are no longer the center of motion. We become a small part being supported, rather than a point of tension that must carry everything. This does not make us small in a negative sense. It makes us lighter. Mountains are still writing their story through pressure and time. There is no ending, only layers laid upon layers. Mountains that stand today were once ancient seabeds. The grains of sand beneath your feet were once the peaks of ranges long gone. Life does not need personal memory to continue, it carries memory in form. Rivers tell their story too, not in words, but in direction. They bend, shift patiently, wear down stone. Not because the river wants to go somewhere, but because it responds faithfully to gravity, without resistance, without panic, simply following what draws it downward. The sea sighs, in, out, in, out. Waves carry no message, yet their rhythm speaks directly to the deepest layers of the human nervous system. Perhaps that is why we fall asleep so easily to the sound of waves, not because we understand the ocean, but because our bodies remember a rhythm older than language. Jung called this the memory of the collective unconscious, where biological rhythms meet cosmic ones. Before thought, before language, before even humans existed, there was rhythm, and that rhythm has never disappeared. As you lie down, your body is gradually rejoining it. Your heartbeat slows, your breath deepens, your muscles release, not because you are trying, but because you are allowed to. The invitation of this ending is very simple. Let go of thinking, not pushing thoughts away, not controlling them, just not holding on. Let the planet do its work as it always has. Let the great movements continue without your intervention. Let your consciousness take the night off. You do not need to watch over the world. You do not need to think anything more. You do not need to understand everything you have just heard. The earth is breathing, and you may breathe with it, or simply rest upon that breath. If a thought still lingers, let it drift like a thin cloud. Do not follow it. Do not push it away. Just watch it dissolve into a wider space. That space is not empty. It is full of life, quietly operating. And as your eyes close, remember this. This planet has never stopped caring for life. Not even through the longest nights. Not even when no one was awake. And if you are still awake here, in the pause between two breaths, that is perfectly fine too. There is no requirement to sleep immediately. No destination to reach. Sleep is not a task, it is a natural state that arrives when conditions are gentle enough. Remember, Earth does not sleep the way humans sleep. It rests by continuing to function, and that steady functioning creates the safety that allows fragile beings like us to let go. Somewhere far beneath unseen rock layers, molten metal is slowly turning, generating a magnetic field that wraps the planet in an invisible cloak. That cloak has protected life from the solar wind for billions of years without sound, without asking for gratitude. It simply does its work. In the same way, there are systems within you quietly taking over tonight. Your nervous system does not need instructions to shift into rest. Your organs do not need reminders to regulate themselves. The unconscious, the deeper intelligence Jung spent his life listening to, is accustomed to working in the dark. Consciousness can grow tired, but the unconscious does not. It is like Earth itself. It does not need light to exist. It does not need words to understand. It does not need supervision to function. As you release the last thoughts of the day, you allow another kind of intelligence to speak. The intelligence of rhythm, repetition, and long time. An intelligence that is not rushed, not judgmental, not demanding outcomes. In that space, everything becomes enough. You do not need to solve anything more. You do not need to replay today. You do not need to prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow does not need you yet. Neither does tonight. There is only this moment, where you are allowed to be placed like a grain of sand held by the ocean, like a stone resting within a mountain. Not pushed, not pulled, not required to become anything else. If any heaviness remains in your body, imagine it being passed gently into the ground. The earth is used to weight. It holds mountains, forests, oceans, so it can hold a little of your tiredness too. You do not have to carry everything alone. And as your breathing becomes steadier, slower, notice one small truth: you are still being supported, even when doing nothing at all. This is not a philosophy. It is a biological, geological, and psychological fact. The earth continues to breathe, and you may allow yourself to dissolve into that rhythm. No more words are needed now. No more thoughts are required. Just let the night complete its work. May you have a deep, gentle, and safe sleep. If you are listening to these stories on Stories for Sleep, you are welcome to subscribe gently, not as an action, but as a small promise for future nights. And now let everything settle. Sleep well.